And there's a plan in place to stockpile snow the winter before the games so that we have all the snow we need just in case. But Bullock says he really wants to showcase how beautiful Utah's wintry landscape is in the mountains and the city, so he's crossing his fingers for a good winter that year.
The state already started already practiced stockpiling snow when we hosted the 2002 games. They kept piles of snow in the mountains and they used insulated blankets to keep it from melting, and it worked. Your money at this moment, the Dow up 41 points to 49,449. Coming up, we still got slowdowns, including some backups in Murray on southbound 15. We'll get an update of traffic coming up next. KSL News Time, 9:02.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
A family office is a team built to handle the three biggest financial responsibilities a family faces: wealth management, tax strategy, and estate planning. Most firms only manage your investments and refer the rest out, hoping everyone stays aligned. At Trajan, we built something different. Your wealth, tax planning, and estate planning are handled together inside one firm under one roof. There's no guessing whether your CPA, advisor, and estate attorney are truly in sync, because our team works together every day on your behalf. When your financial life becomes more complex, your advice should become more coordinated, not more fragmented. One plan, one trusted team. Call Trajan today, 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Trajan Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Additional services through Trajan Estate and Trajan Tax. Additional disclosures and accreditation at TrajanWealth.com.
For years I've said this, when it comes to the person you love, there are 3 dates you never, ever want to forget or overlook. 1, birthday. 2, anniversary. 3, it's Valentine's Day. And the perfect place to celebrate Valentine's Day with the one you love, it's Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. First of all, of course, the best food you have ever had. But the ambiance, the wait service is absolutely incredible. And we have 2 locations. One, Hotel Park City, up in the mountains after a day of skiing. That would be perfect. And of course, also in downtown Salt Lake City at 275 South, West Temple. The steaks are divine. You're going to love the seafood dishes, poultry, whatever it is, cooked to perfection at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Be sure to make your reservations now for Valentine's Day.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAINN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rainn.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAINN and this station.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by UCCU. Transfer savings, earn more. UCCU, love where you bank. Here's McCormick Bone.
Couple of issues southbound I-15. First in Murray, a disabled vehicle near 5300 South causing those delays that start around 4500 South. Looks like they're starting to clear up. They are still blocking that left shoulder, though. And southbound I-15 in American Fork, we're also seeing a crash. This is at Pioneer Crossing. They're blocking the right shoulder. Looks like Highway Patrol might have done a controlled slowdown because the road is clear for just a second there. So you're going to see those delays starting around 2100 North. And northbound Bangerter Highway, this is in West Valley, we're seeing a crash near 4700 South causing some heavier delays. Two Brothers Mattress with their lowest prices guaranteed. Two Brothers Mattress is your #1 choice for Tempur-Pedic mattresses. Visit twobrothersmattress.com. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today, sunny with highs in the 50s. Rest of the week, much of the same. Yes, it is still February. Right now, it is 34 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, Holly, it was only a matter of time, but Utah's redistricting case has now gone to federal court in a lawsuit that was filed yesterday by about a dozen individuals, including our next guest, against the lieutenant governors in her capacity as lieutenant governor. They're asking that the Utah maps that have now been put in place by the third district court judge be set aside, and that we go back to the maps that were drawn up by the legislature in 2021 and used in 2022 and 2024. It's now filed in federal court.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because when we've had conversations about this before, we've had even Utah lawmakers say this is a state issue because the state is the one that runs elections, and so it belongs with the Utah State Supreme Court, which is there is a lawsuit there. But this one takes it to federal court, and one of the is it plaintiffs? Is that the right word? One of the plaintiffs on the lawsuit is Congresswoman Celeste Malloy. She's on the line with us. Thanks for joining us this morning, Representative Malloy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And I am on the phone in a hearing room in the Longworth House Office building. So if you can hear those bells going off, those are the bells that tell us when it's time to go vote.
Okay, we'll be quick then.
If you have to vote, go ahead, Representative. We appreciate your time.
No, I'm mobile. We can keep talking. I just want people to know I'm not on a ship with a foghorn.
Oh,
wonderful.
Thank you. Can you talk to us just about the reason behind filing this lawsuit and specifically why in federal court?
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't read the op-ed that we, the plaintiffs, put in the Deseret News last night, I would really encourage people to go read that because we put that out as soon as we filed to make sure people understand our reasoning. But this is it's the federal map. The only map that's been challenged is the congressional map. And the United States Constitution says that state legislatures draw those maps, and the state Constitution says that legislatures draw those maps. And so we're just making sure that we're using all of the tools available to us to make sure we get a good outcome here. So the state has their appeal at the state Supreme Court, and we filed this complaint at the federal court just to make sure that we're getting the questions answered as quickly as we possibly can.
So I did read the op-ed, and I appreciate it. I think it was a very, very helpful thing, and I hope it is for Utahns who take a minute and look it over because it explains what's going on. I guess I have a question about the timing of this, and I know that the timing has been very difficult, but is this something that I guess why so late in the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. We started working on this in December, but there are 12 plaintiffs, and it just takes some time to get that many people lined out, make sure that you have a complaint that satisfies that many people. Greg, you probably know as much about this as anyone. The words in a lawsuit really matter, and you've got to make sure that you're accurately conveying what that many plaintiffs want to say, and it just took us some time to get there.
Is this something, Representative, that you think that can be expedited by the federal court? You've indicated that you want a 3-judge panel, and I looked up the U.S. code that you relied on there that clearly provides for a 3-judge panel given the constitutional issues here. But how do you think this could play out in the next month or so?
Yeah, what we're hoping is that the federal court will also look at that code, see that it provides for a 3-judge panel, see the wisdom in moving this as quickly as possible because it is very much a live issue. Normally, I would have already filed to run for office nearly a month ago. So we're burning daylight, so to speak, and all 4 of us are in the same boat. It's confusing for the public, it's confusing for the voters, and what we need is answers as quickly as we can get them. So we're hoping that the court will move quickly, provide those answers, and that we can all file for office, run for office, and give the voters a choice there as well.
Representative, I know that some of the arguments against this idea that it's confusing and chaotic, some of the people on the other side of the issue are saying it's not confusing. We have a map that was approved in November, I believe. What is your response to that?
I have a very simple response to that. The map that the judge selected in November is not a product of the Independent Redistricting Commission, and it's also not a product of our state legislature. So I know it's tempting to look at this as an anti-Prop 4 thing, and I have also signed the petition to overturn Prop 4, but this lawsuit is about getting a map that has public buy-in. So the reason the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution both say that state legislatures draw maps is because the state legislature collectively, as a body, represents everybody in the state. So there's some accountability there. And even with Prop 4 and an independent redistricting commission, the commission has a selection process, and they were intended to make recommendations to the state legislature, but ultimately the state legislature selected a map. The process we have right now is that a judge selected a map that came from a plaintiff in another lawsuit. There's not the public buy-in. There weren't the public hearings like the legislature did. And there's no way to hold that group that drew the map accountable. And so what we want is a map that's approved by the state legislature and has that public buy-in and the sheen of respectability that comes with having had public hearings, letting people weigh in, and then letting people hold their elected officials accountable if they don't like the way the map was drawn.
I have another question, and this has to do with something that was written in the op-ed explaining your position. And I thought the op-ed was pretty clear that this is not personal to the lieutenant governor. It's actually because our current lieutenant governor is over elections in the state of Utah.
Yes.
And yet the actual lawsuit says Map 1 was drawn by activist organizations selected by a state court and agreed to or embraced by the lieutenant governor. That seems to indicate that there's a feeling on your part that somehow she's to blame.
No, this is the avenue we have to fix it, and it's a lawsuit naming the lieutenant governor in her official capacity. She is the elections official. That's where we have to go with this lawsuit. This isn't an anti-Deidre Henderson thing. We need answers, and she's the election official, and that's where we have to go to get them.
Right. I understand that, but I also am confused by this idea that in the actual lawsuit it says embraced by the lieutenant governor.
Maybe a different word than embraced would have been more clear. I don't know. It's too late to change that now. But it's the lieutenant governor, and she said this several times publicly. When the judge released her map, the lieutenant governor had two choices. She could either comply with a court order or, do what it says in the Constitution. She doesn't really have the option of not complying with a court order. So we're trying to make sure she has another option.
Very well. Thank you very much, Representative, and we really appreciate your time early this morning, and go back to your voting if you can.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was Representative Celeste Malloy. So,
really graciously giving her time this morning on a case like this. This is an interesting case because the federal, and we'll talk about it more after the break, but the federal and state constitution have similar language about time, place, and manner of holding elections. I want to talk about what that means.
Well, I have questions for you, so I hope our listeners do stay with us as we come back after the break.
If you're getting new gutters, make absolutely sure that you don't get screwed. I mean literally, don't get screwed. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. And every single gutter company out there uses screws to hold their gutters together at the corners and downspouts. They use screws because they're fast and cheap and easy, but man, they're terrible for your gutters, aside from possibly cutting your hand. They also loosen and corrode over time because they're not made from the same metal as the gutters. At RGS Exteriors, we've been installing gutters for 70 years now, and we don't use screws. We only use permanent, strong, and unobtrusive rivets. They're made from the same material as the gutters, so they won't oxidize and they won't corrode. They'll also never loosen. Your hand is safe too. Did I mention they look amazing? So don't get screwed. Call RGS and get riveted gutters. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsutah.com.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Does it feel like someone's stabbing a knife into your heel? Or does your lower back give you problems as the day goes on? The Good Feet store wants to help you like we helped Ann.
Every time I stood up, pain just shot up my legs. Fortunately, I found the Good Feet store. I went to them after my doctor diagnosed me with plantar fasciitis. And now, thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm 100%.
Wouldn't it be nice to get back to doing what you love, like Patrick did?
I was in constant pain. Somehow my fiance and I found our way into the Good Feet store. Put my foot on the arch support system. I put them in my shoes, my back, my knees, my ankles. Thank you. Thank you, everybody at the Good Feet store. You gave me my active life back.
Learn more or schedule an appointment at goodfeet.com and come in and get your free personalized fitting at the Good Feet store. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
This message comes from Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort. Journey through the heart of Europe on an elegant Viking longship with thoughtful service, destination-focused dining, and cultural enrichment on board and on shore. With small ships that bring travelers closer to the destination, there's more time to explore. And every Viking voyage is all-inclusive, with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
My name is Ariel. When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without my high school diploma. My entire life changed when I took a chance and got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
Ariel, your success proves that what I'm doing as a teacher has real meaning.
It was an honor helping you achieve your greatness. Now you're helping others achieve theirs. It inspires me.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Find free and supportive adult education centers near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Andy, I like that shirt. Is that a new shirt?
It is. It's from Ann Collar, and it's really rare to find a shirt that looks good and is super comfortable. And this is a fabric unlike anything I've ever felt.
I got one for my husband and my sons, and they watching my 19-year-old put on the Ann Collar shirt and sort of check himself out in the mirror. I thought, wow, he's really digging that. And I can understand why, because it's not just comfortable, it's stain repellent, which I needed.
Oh, my goodness.
Because,
That is something.
He attracts spaghetti sauce to shirts like you would not believe. And with these Ann Collar shirts, I can get it out.
Amanda, I have to wear a special bib when I eat spaghetti with a white shirt on. But with Ann Collar shirts, it takes those little tiny nicks and stains, and they don't stick to you. Yeah, you don't have to dump a bucket of stuff on you, but it would repel that too.
You've got to try one. So whether it's the traditional white shirt or any of the patterns they have, it's Ann Collar, and they're made right here in Utah.
If you've never tried Ann Collar before, we have got permission to give you 15% off at andcollar.com and go get your first. Use the code KSL15.
That's Ann Collar, ANDcollar.com.
Emergency medical unit, respond to 102 Maple Avenue. Possible stroke victim.
When stroke occurs, you have 60 minutes to win or lose the race of your life. There are new treatments, but you must get to a hospital fast. If you suddenly feel weakness on one side, have trouble speaking, walking, or seeing, it could be a stroke. Call 911. Get to a hospital. Because how you spend the next 60 minutes could determine how you spend the rest of your life. Stroke. Know the signs. Act in time. A message from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke.
And expanded Inside Sources.
Well, Representative Celeste Malloy and Representative Burgess Owens, among others, about another 7 or 8, have filed a lawsuit against our lieutenant governor in her capacity as lieutenant governor over the congressional boundary map that we've been talking about, all going back to Prop 4. We just spoke with Representative Celeste Malloy, who is one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, and explained sort of the federal connection to this. She's looking at the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, which we haven't really addressed in connection with this case.
Yeah, that's right.
It's really been argued along Utah constitutional lines, but the Constitution in both jurisdictions, state and federal, are fairly similar as it relates to how and what powers the representatives have with respect to these voting.
So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but I do want to set up or just remind our listeners about why this matters. Yes. So the map that Judge Gibson from the 3rd District Court in Utah put in place in November is the map that is going to inform the 2026 elections unless one of these lawsuits, one federal, one state, somehow gets the court to act quickly enough that they invalidate the map that Judge Gibson put in place.
There's also a signature gathering process going on.
But that won't change the map. That
Okay.
would invalidate Proposition 4. It would take it out of the Constitution if that succeeds, and that won't be on the ballot until November anyway. But there's two lawsuits, one at the state level, one at the federal level. But what they really are hoping for is somehow to change the map that Judge Gibson said would dictate the congressional districts in this year's election before the March filing deadline, which is like a month away.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. And they're asking the federal court to jump in based on the federal constitution, which is similar to the state constitution. And they're really relying on this language, Holly, that says, and the state and federal constitutions are similar, that is that time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed by each state in the legislature. So time, place, and manner of the election for senators or representatives will be set by the legislature.
So that sounds to me like this is a states' rights issue, and we're actually going to talk about that in a segment at 10 o'clock because President Trump has said let's nationalize some elections. But this says to me that this is a states' rights issue, that states get the right to decide how they're going to do it. And then the whole thing, we've talked about this on our show before, is that there seem to be two conflicting areas in the state constitution. There's one area that says that the state legislature will draw, and there's another area that says that members of the public, and I'm going to paraphrase, but
You're
members
right.
of the public can weigh in and affect change on their government.
Right.
So those are the two conflicting ones. But when we spoke with Celeste Malloy, she said this about the lawsuit.
The only map that's been challenged is the congressional map. And the United States Constitution says that state legislatures draw those maps, and the state Constitution says that legislatures draw those maps. And so we're just making sure that we're using all of the tools available to us to make sure we get a good outcome here. So the state has their appeal at the state Supreme Court, and we filed this complaint at the federal court just to make sure that we're getting the questions answered as quickly as we possibly can.
And I appreciate what she's saying. She is law trained. Celeste Malloy is an attorney. But the constitutions do not say that the legislature draws the maps. That language is not in it. It's sort of an analogy based on what the Constitution does say and talks about time, place, and manner of the election. So if the manner of the election means drawing the maps, then she's right. But I'm not sure that's what it means. I mean, and I think the courts are going to have to decide what the manner of the election is. Does that mean that the legislature decides the maps and the citizens don't?
This is not about this lawsuit, but there's a question about can President Trump by executive order say no more vote by mail? Because it sounds to me like manner could include voting by mail.
Right.
And each
Absolutely.
state can decide
now, that would be a manner. That would make perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
okay.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So here are some questions I have for you about the logistics. So they filed in federal court and they asked for a 3-judge panel to review. What does that mean?
Okay, so under United States Code, if there's a lawsuit that, and I'm using a quote here, challenges the constitutionality of the apportionment of congressional districts.
Okay, so
which seems pretty appropriate here. Then a 3-judge panel is required. So in other words, we have a number of federal judges here in Utah. There's certainly more than 3. So instead of just going to one judge, they're asking for 3 district court judges. Usually assume the appellate courts have 3 or more judges. The Supreme Court obviously has
5.
Yeah, the
7.
Utah Supreme Court. Yeah, the federal Supreme Court has more. So you've got the U.S. Supreme Court has 9. So you have, usually at appellate courts you have more than one judge. What they're saying is that by statute, U.S. Code allows a constitutional challenge to a law, especially as it relates to districting and setting up of congressional districts, will be heard by a 3-judge panel.
Okay.
So it's not going to be in front of a jury.
Right, and it's not just one judge,
Correct.
right? But it's 3.
Right.
So then that brings me to a question about timing. I feel like court calendars seem to be pretty full. I could be wrong, but this seems very urgent if they want a decision by March, which is in a month. Is this something that's even possible for a 3-judge panel to hear in the next 4 weeks?
Well, I would say yes and no. Certainly the issues have been adequately briefed in every respect. So this isn't something where the judges are going to say, let's have you submit your briefs. You've got 60 days to do that. I think that the plaintiffs and the defense could probably submit their briefs by tomorrow at noon. You know what I mean? I'm exaggerating.
Would they be the same complaints that they've submitted to the Utah Supreme Court?
Very, very similar, along the same lines, because the state and federal constitutions are, the language is very similar. So I think the parties can get their information to the court quickly. Whether or not a 3-judge panel can be convened, can schedule arguments, and can issue a ruling in the next 30, 60 days. Didn't you say the filing deadline is in March?
Yeah, the beginning, first week, second week maybe.
That's going to be incredibly difficult. And we asked Representative Malloy about the timing of this, and she did indicate that there was, since there are so many plaintiffs, I think 12, she said, that it was hard to get everybody together. That's not a great excuse, but it's what they had. I mean, they did have a lot of people there, and I think they wanted to make sure that they didn't get kicked out of court for having not the right person, not the right plaintiff, somebody that didn't have what we call standing.
Yeah.
So they sort of threw everybody in and said, well, one of these people has standings. We're not going to get this lawsuit tossed out, which I think was effective. I think that made sense. It did take a little bit extra time to get it filed, but it was filed yesterday.
So there are 2 congressional representatives. It's Representative Burgess Owens and Representative Celeste Malloy. And then there are some county commissioners, some sheriffs, and a mayor, I think.
Right. Several county commissioners, several county, one mayor, a couple of sheriffs. I don't know why the sheriffs would be named
in redistricting.
I'm not even sure about the county commissioners. I think county clerks and others that could be involved. Certainly Malloy and Owens have a dog in the fight. I mean, I'm surprised all 4 representatives didn't join this.
So at least to county commissioner, I know one of the county commissioners on that list was one that we talked about on this show, because he said as a county commission they were not accepting the map that Judge Gibson had put forward in November as the map. So I guess it's an interesting timeline because it's so quick, but I'm going to assume that the people on the other side, the Better Boundaries people, are going to appeal if somehow the judge or the court rules that we're going back, and then that these plaintiffs would appeal up to the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, if they find that Judge Gibson's ruling should stand, right?
Which has no chance of occurring between now and March. I mean,
that's exactly right.
And what about this scenario? What if the Utah Supreme Court says the maps are fine, and the U.S. District Court says they're not? You have 2 judges, 2 sets of jurisdictions looking at the same issue, but through different lenses, federal versus state constitution. How's that going to play out?
Well, that's a good question. How is it going to play out?
Well, you would assume that the federal constitution would override state issues. And I think that the Constitution says that when there's a conflict between state and federal, the feds win out.
So I'm not an attorney, you know that, but I think the only hope that people who want to go back to the 2021 maps have is that one or both of the courts issue some kind of a stay.
Yeah, a stay quickly so that the lieutenant governor can. I feel sorry for her right now because she doesn't know.
And county clerks, and they're already like, these are the boundaries. What do you want us to do? Right. Well, now they want you to do something different.
Right. Well, shifting gears just a little bit, Utah's Speaker of the House called for our sentencing commission. He said that it's broken and wants to remove defense attorneys from that list. There are 3. As a defense attorney, I guess I have a few questions about that. But we'll get a call from the speaker next.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour: former West High teacher Sterrett O'Neill is heading to prison for sex crimes against one of his students after a judge imposed consecutive sentences that could keep him incarcerated for life. Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill says accountability matters, not just for punishment, but for protection.
Especially when you have children, that vulnerability will not be gone without accountability. So hopefully this will stop somebody from behaving that way. And also children need to know that when they are in these settings, that they can trust the people who are there.
Gill says the sentence sends a message to anyone in a position of trust with children. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: the president of Colombia will be at the White House today. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has more.
President Trump hosts Colombia's President Gustavo Petro today at the White House, a meeting that comes after the two seem to have toned down their rhetoric after recent tensions. President Trump last fall accused Petro of producing cocaine and not stopping drug production in Colombia. He personally insulted Petro and threatened U.S. action in Colombia if Petro did not take steps against the cartels. Yesterday, the president said their relationship changed after the U.S. operation in Venezuela that took out Nicolas Maduro, saying Petro, quote, became very nice. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment, the Dow down 25 points right now to 49,382. Coming up, we still got a couple of traffic-related problems we'll get an update on, as well as a check of the weather. KSL News Time, 9:31.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Jeff Kaplan here. You need your house painted and you want it done at the right price. So I want to suggest you get a quote from the professionals at CertaPro Painters. It's not just a coat of paint, it's your home. That's why from the estimate to the cleanup, they're going to work to exceed your expectations. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated right here in our community. They're committed to quality at the right price. Schedule your free estimate online at CertaPro.com. That's Certa with a C. CertaPro.com.
Hi, I'm Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell, America's largest family law firm. During this time of year, difficult relationships sometimes become impossible. If you or someone you care about is facing a family law issue, let us set up a 1-hour Cordell Consult. The Cordell Consult is a meeting with a local attorney who will give you clear guidance about your options, whether it's a separation, a postnuptial agreement, divorce, or custody. Take the first step. Visit CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com.
Taxes was waiting on the refund you needed yesterday.
All right, your car repair is going to run about $3,000.
Now Taxes is getting back on the road with TurboTax and Credit Karma, where you can get your refund up to 5 days faster and get personalized guidance to take every dollar further. Now this is Taxes. Intuit Credit Karma with TurboTax. Deposit a federal refund into Credit Karma Money account and early submission of refund data by IRS required. Terms apply. Banking services provided by MVB Bank, Inc. Member FDIC. Credit Karma is not a bank.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed. Shop now for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at UCCU.com. Let's get an update from Cormac Bone.
Couple of issues on our freeway. Southbound I-15, still seeing a crash in American Fork on the right shoulder at Pioneer Crossing. If you're running into those delays, I don't think it's actually from that crash, though. I think it's from drivers merging onto I-15 from Pioneer Crossing, where we still have some eastbound delays starting at 500 West till you get to I-15. Otherwise, I-15 through Utah County looking pretty good. I-15 through Salt Lake, Weber, and Davis counties, all looking good. We do have a crash. This is eastbound, the transition ramp from eastbound I-80 to I-215 southbound I-215's east belt. Little light delays as they're blocking the left shoulder there. Where we do have a bigger crash, this is northbound Bangerter Highway near 4700 South. Right now we don't see any delays as the volumes on the road is a little bit lighter. Plan the perfect President's Day weekend getaway. Ski the Beeve, just 20 minutes from Garden City with east access and good snow. Make your winter escape simple and close. Visit bearlake.org for more. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today, sunny. Highs in the 50s. And it's going to look like that for much of the next 7 days. Don't even have a chance, it looks like, of rain until sometime at the end of the weekend. Right now it is 37 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as you know, Holly, I've been involved in the criminal justice system for 4 years. I have several as a prosecutor and several as a defense attorney. And, years ago, Utah set up what they called a sentencing commission because with respect to every crime, there is not only the guilt phase, but we talk about the sentencing part.
Right.
What does a judge do? And it's interesting because a lot of people don't understand how sentencing works and what discretion judges have. And I think that the sentencing commission was set up to enact some guidelines so that we wouldn't have disparity. You wouldn't have perhaps some judge who's really liberal in one part of the state and one judge who's specifically harsh in another part, giving inconsistent sentences.
Okay, yeah.
For two people just who commit the exact same crime. So the Sentencing Commission has set up guidelines. Judges don't have to follow them, but they're helpful. And we kind of go, when we go to court, we look at those. We say, okay, you plug somebody into a matrix and you say, okay, based on all these factors, you should serve X number of months, weeks, years in jail or prison. And there's been some concern about that, whether or not those guidelines are fair or whether they really reflect what should be happening in our criminal justice system. So Utah Speaker of the House is considering some changes to that. And I've been looking at those changes. They're pretty significant, but maybe we can talk to him about that.
Welcome to our conversation, Mr. Speaker. We have on the line Speaker Mike Schultz. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Greg and Holly. It's great to be with you guys this morning. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So we know that it's pretty rare for the Speaker of the House to run a bill. What is it about this bill that you care so much about that you are the sponsor?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. It's a really good question. So we're seeing more and more of our constituents that we represent have public safety top of mind. And as we talk with law enforcement and others, we're hearing the over and over theme of people are no longer being held accountable for the decisions they make. And there's a revolving door or catch and release type policy here in the state of Utah. And to be honest with you, the legislature has been part of that problem over the years. 10 plus years ago, maybe, the legislature loosened up a bunch of the guidelines and the recommendations on sentencing, and so what we're looking to do is say, okay, we've went down that road. It's not working. People are getting upset. Polling, when we look at polling in public safety, is rising to the top. Maybe not to the top, but it's rising in the top 3 or 4 issues in many counties. And so this is an issue that we're trying to address and tackle. And so that's why this bill came forward.
Yeah, it was interesting. I enjoyed reading the bill, Speaker, and because what you have done, at least in later parts of it, is sort of prioritize public safety in a way that you maybe feel it hadn't been prioritized before. Maybe that there had been more emphasis on rehabilitation, more emphasis on, I guess the defendant's rights, for lack of a better word, but now you're prioritizing public safety and even the rights of the victims, it seems.
Yeah, well, let me give you kind of a breakdown of there's roughly, give or take, 15 people on the Sentencing Commission, and there's 3 defense attorneys on the Sentencing Commission, and there's only 1 victims person on the Sentencing Commission. And so, what the bill does, it takes off the defense attorneys and adds some additional law enforcement and public safety people to the commission. And I wholeheartedly admit, is that the right balance? I don't know. We just want to solve the problem. So we're working with the stakeholders to find a solution. And let me just give you why it's so concerning to me. If you go back roughly 10 years ago, on an aggregated assault causing serious bodily injury, the Sentencing Commission guideline was 210 days incarceration. Today, that same recommendation starts at 0 days to 210 days. And that's where I get concerned is, somebody that caused aggregated assault and causing serious bodily injury, the Sentencing Commission guideline starts out at 0 days incarceration. I have a really hard time with that. And then again, you can go to some very serious sexual offense guidelines. Same story. 10 years ago, the recommendation was 210 days incarceration. Today, it is 0 to 210 days. And so, I think there's several ways to get at this. This bill is one of those ways that we're looking to strengthen public safety for our constituents. And we're open to ideas as we're moving forward. I've had a couple of different ideas thrown out at me as far as possible changes and amendments. And we want to find the right process that best protects our citizens, and that's what we're going through right now.
So, Mr. Speaker, Greg might not want to ask this question, but I do. What is it about defense attorneys, 3 out of a 15-member panel, that why you want to remove them?
Well, again, I think if you look at on par, when you have 3 defense attorneys and only 1 victim on a panel, to me that's concerning. But the bigger thing is as I talk about some of these sentences that are, they slap on the wrist for some very, very serious sexual assault crimes that have been committed, or even some bodily damage, harm being committed. And they say, well, the judge points to the Sentencing Commission guidelines that start out at 0. And they say, well, it's within that range. So that's why the defense attorneys argue to start at 0 on everything, because they want to go to courtroom and they want to, as a good defense attorney would do, try to get the least amount of incarceration days or least amount of penalties for their clients. And so, we definitely don't want to take away that right of the defense attorneys, but we also feel like it's heavily weighted in the Sentencing Commission before it gets to that point. So I think there's a good argument to say, should the defense attorneys be allowed to influence the process before it goes to trial and then also at the trial. So that's where we're at. Again, to have 1 victim's service member, 1 victim member on this Sentencing Commission and 3 defense attorneys, I don't think is the right balance.
I have a follow-up question to that, though, because the Sentencing Commission is 15 people and 3 is definitely not a majority. But I wonder, in your proposal to expand this commission, taking the defense attorneys off and adding more law enforcement, it doesn't sound like you're adding additional victim advocates. Am I misreading the bill?
Yep. Well, no, as of right now, that's not the case. And again, we're open to different ideas and, certainly probably need to look at increasing the victims on there as well. And so, and we looked at several different other things too, and that we're talking about, some of the juvenile stuff, the juvenile people on there tend to generally lean with very light consequences for serious actions. And so, we're looking at the whole structure of it. So not saying that it's all the defense attorneys, although I think they're probably part of the biggest problem because they're the ones that argue the loudest for the 0, starting at 0.
I have one final follow-up question.
Incarceration. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. So I'm just looking at an article, and this was from the Deseret News just last week. Representative Tyler Clancy held a big crime deterrence event and talking about decreasing crime in the state of Utah. But one of the things that he talked about, and people at his on his panel, they were talking about shorter sentences. Is there a conflict here between what Representative Clancy wants to achieve and what you are hoping to achieve?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but as you know, Representative Clancy is law enforcement and is part of the Provo Police Department. He's very supportive of this bill. He says he sees it on a regular basis where very serious criminal offenders are not being held accountable for the crimes that they commit. And he believes that the Sentencing Commission is part of it. If you go back and listen to his testimony in the committee, I think you'll see that he's very much in favor. And not just Representative Clancy, all of law enforcement that I'm aware of, all the whether it's Sheriff's Association, Chief of Police, everyone is supporting this bill and making some changes to it. So.
Mike, I think Holly thought I was going to climb down your throat or
no,
something.
No.
To cover all the questions.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your time on this and the obvious work that you put into this.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a moving target, and we'll keep working to try to find that right balance. So thanks for having me. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. And I still have questions, so we're going to continue to talk about this when we come back after the break.
Sometimes when our furnace stops working, it's something simple we can fix ourselves, if we only knew how. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the next time your furnace stops working, before you call a company out to fix it, try this first. Go shut the furnace down and make sure your air filter is clean. Go around the house and make sure the vents are open and there's nothing blocking the return airs. If it's been a while since you've changed the batteries in your thermostat, go ahead and do that too. Then go turn the furnace back on, and if it stays on, you're probably good. If it stops working again, you're probably going to want a technician to check it out. If you don't know one, Any Hour Services has a special offer for any homeowners listening. One of our HVAC technicians will diagnose and troubleshoot your furnace for only $29. Then they'll explain what they found and present you with repair options. And don't worry, our technicians service all brands. Call Any Hour Services and let them know you heard about this $29 troubleshooting special on the radio. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes in new inventory every day. Then they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. So you're invited to visit the movie show Friday 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
Thursday on KSL.
On the face of it, it's a harmless prank.
Doorbell ditching, a game that generations of children played, has taken a frightening turn.
All you could see was a hoodie and a mask.
The KSL investigators set out to understand why a once silly prank,
it looked like a handgun, you just firing it at us,
seems to be more dangerous today.
You don't know whose door you're going to go knock on or pound on.
Ding Dong Danger, Thursday at 10.
You're still grooving, still connecting, still loving, still turning up, still thriving. You still got it, but your immune system, it weakens as you age. That's where vaccines come in. They help train and strengthen your immune response to fight off respiratory illnesses like flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, or COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Book in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This year's tax changes. Better not get caught snoozing. Miss one deduction, lose thousands. Not amusing.
Big tax changes can mean bigger refunds at Jackson Hewitt. And right now, get $100 just to try us.
Don't worry, tax filers. If money is tight, get $100 from Jackson Hewitt, so you'll sleep better at night.
Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
You can't escape a traffic jam. Know what else you can't escape? Seasonal allergies. And you might think you can avoid that coffee stain until... Oh, really? You can't escape a lot of things in life, but you can escape prediabetes. Prediabetes captures 1 in 3 adults. There are usually no signs of prediabetes. In fact, most people don't even know they have it. But with early diagnosis, you can change the outcome and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Take action by taking the 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. You might not be able to escape having this song stuck in your head, but you can escape prediabetes. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
My name is Tom.
My name is Cindy.
We give to and volunteer with United Way at our community free health clinic.
We know our time and money are going to the right places.
We don't just wear the shirt.
We live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
And expanded Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
Well, as we've been talking about this morning, Utah Speaker of the House is calling for our Sentencing Commission to be changed and claiming that it's broken, wants to remove defense attorneys from it.
It's not personal to you.
Yeah, right. And add more prosecutors and more law enforcement. I looked at the numbers here. There are 15 members on the Sentencing Commission now. 3 are defense attorneys. He's asking that those 3 be removed, and we add 4 prosecutors and 2 sheriffs, so it become from 15 to 18. But the Sentencing Commission does this, and I think it's really interesting. They try to develop guidelines for judges to use in imposing sentencing. In Utah and in America, ultimately the judge decides sentencing. So
Right.
these are guidelines. They're advisory. They're
Right.
they're in place for a judge to have an idea what's happening statewide. But a judge can absolutely deviate from that.
Right.
A judge
Right.
can say,
In fact, there was a case yesterday, and I was telling you about this during the break. There was a judge where the sentencing guidelines were take this plea deal, and I don't know, it was minimal jail time, and the judge was like, no, this was for a therapist who was at least sexually exploiting some of his clients, and the judge said, no, you're going to go to jail, you're going to serve sentences consecutively, and you're going to think about what you did. And I'm paraphrasing, of course.
and there's almost no remedy to a defendant who says that, because you can't say, well, the guidelines say this, because the judge will say, well, that's nice. They're guidelines.
So it's interesting that there's that there's this bill, and clearly Speaker Schultz feels pretty passionate about it. And we wanted to have on the reporter who did the story about this sentencing commission being broken and needing to be changed, and that's Bridger Bill Svetko. He's from KSL.com. He's on the line with us right now. Thanks for joining us, Bridger.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you talk to us about what you learned about the genesis of this bill? Why is the speaker wanting to bring this forward?
Yeah, this really stems from a case last year in May out of Moab when Judge Don Torgerson, during a sentencing for a person who pleaded guilty to having child sexual abuse material, Torgerson ultimately didn't require him to serve any additional jail time or pay a fine for this offense that he pleaded guilty to. He also referred to the defendant's privilege during the sentencing. KSL actually broke a story about that and created a big stir around this issue. Mike Schultz was very passionate about it. He condemned the judge, later called on him to resign, joined a bipartisan group of lawmakers who pushed for that judge to resign. So he cites this as the kind of the inception of this bill, seeing this defendant treated more leniently than the speaker thought he should be given.
Yeah, Bridger, and we know now that the judge didn't resign, but that sentence was in what they call the guideline range, and the judge was relying on those. Do you suppose this is an effort to maybe tie judges' hands a little bit more, or to say, look, these are guidelines, but we want you to follow these. We want you to impose sentences that are more consistent with what the legislature might think is the appropriate punishment?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's absolutely right. We spoke with the speaker yesterday, and he mentioned that while this sentencing commission does create, most of those guidelines that you're familiar with, that power is delegated by lawmakers, and in certain cases they've passed bills in the past that kind of go in and create specific guidelines. So we've seen them get involved before, and I think this is a more broad push to see harsher penalties in some of these instances, see those guidelines moved to be a little more harsh on criminal defendants.
How are other organizations responding to this proposed bill?
Yeah, well, there's been some pushback from defense attorneys, naturally, but also from the Utah State Bar Commission, which came out against this bill, along with several other bills that have to do with criminal justice or the judiciary this year. But they say this erodes a balance that, if this commission is determining what sentences should be, you should have some people that are prosecutors and some on the defense to hopefully kind of work out an equilibrium on what those guidelines should be. The bar and defense attorneys worry that this kind of erodes that and puts the thumb down on the side of harsher penalties in these cases. And so I understand they're working with the sponsor. You heard the speaker, a few minutes ago say he's open to these ideas. I'm not sure if that'll lead to concrete changes to the bill, but it seems like there are ongoing discussions at this point.
And Holly did speak with the speaker, and you might recognize this as well, Bridger, that the Speaker of the House doesn't usually propose legislation. Do we know why he's so passionate about this one, or is it because of this Don Torgerson issue that you just mentioned, the Judge Torgerson?
Yeah, you're right. It is rare, and it tells us this is a priority, at least for him, as well as the House Majority Leader. Sounds like he's on board with this proposal. So you always take these bills, feel like they have a little bit more weight than any kind of typical bill that's proposed by the rank and file lawmakers. I do think this case of Judge Torgerson is a strong motivator for the Speaker. Legislators have been critical of the judiciary in several cases, going speaking about cases on redistricting and abortion. So I think this falls under this, but I think he's particularly frustrated with this case that we saw play out last year and wants to prevent that from happening again.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. That was Bridger Biel-Svetko from KSL.com. And I'm looking at this bill. Actually, it's already had a committee hearing. It was a 9-2 vote. And now it is on the House floor waiting to be heard by the entire House, where if it passes, which I am assuming it will, it'll go over to the Senate side.
So let me say this about sentencing, because Utah has a weird system. We have what are called indeterminate sentences, 1 to 15 years in prison,
Sure.
5 years to life. The legislature has whittled away at that consistently over the years to where now there are certain crimes, understandably, where you have, for example, crimes involving children as victims, where a judge has no discretion but to it's mandatory prison.
Right.
And it's a mandatory, could be 15 to life, could be 25 to life. And I've talked to judges over the years who feel like, what am I doing as a judge when the legislature is telling me what the punishment should be? And I've even had judges say that's not why I signed up to be a judge, because judicial discretion is what it's all about. But the legislature has consistently been upset at some judges and concerned about what some judges are doing to the effect that we're now having minimum mandatory sentences which judges cannot, except in the most extreme circumstances, override.
You know, it's interesting, and we have a texter who weighed in and said sometimes you have to take what you can get, because if it's difficult to prosecute, sometimes you just have to go with a plea deal. So, for example, a case of domestic violence, right, where maybe the wife is reluctant to testify, but if there's a plea, then maybe she will. I mean, that's the example that they brought up. But one of the things, too, that's interesting to me, when you say minimum mandatory sentencing, it makes me think of the 3 strikes law. And, you know, we tried that as a nation, and it didn't work that great, because what was happening is we were finding people with, I would say, relatively minor drug charges, marijuana possession, for example, not even distribution, and they would end up going away for life if they were picked up a third time.
Right, and the federal government looked at that, and they had their own sentencing guidelines, which were mandatory until maybe 10 years ago, and they said judges shouldn't be picking a number between 56 and 72 months. They should have the authority to go from 0 to 100 and make their own decisions. So went to the extent that the federal government ever tried to have mandatory sentencing and try to box judges in, it didn't work particularly well. The state is absolutely not. And I love Mike Schultz, and I appreciate him talking, but he mentioned, you know, these guidelines have decreased the sentencing. It's not exactly true. Where the old guideline was 210 days, now it's 0 to 210. I think it was always considered to be up to 210. So I don't know that we're really taking a step backwards in sentencing and issuing more lenient sentencing, or that the Sentencing Commission is doing that. I actually think just the opposite is happening, that we're, if anything, sentencings are getting tougher and tougher over the years because of the legislature's concern.
Well, it's interesting, and I mentioned this to Speaker Schultz, and he said he wasn't aware of it, but last week, Representative Tyler Clancy held a big crime summit, and we had talked to the representative before the summit, but one of the ideas that was floated at the summit was really this conversation about shortening sentences, that some of them were just too long. So they seem to be in competition with each other. Maybe they're not really.
Right, and I could go on for
weeks
about
we'll
rehabilitation as opposed to punishment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, it was good to have that discussion. It was nice for the speaker to join us. When we come back after the break, kind of a stunning statement by the president. He said he wants to nationalize elections, at least in some areas, rather than let the states run them. Imagine nationalize elections. We're going to talk about that after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour: the man accused of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University is scheduled to be back in the courtroom this afternoon. His defense is still trying to get the current set of prosecutors thrown off the case. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has details.
Tyler Robinson's defense team is claiming the current prosecutors with the Utah County Attorney's Office have a conflict of interest because one of them has a child who goes to UVU and was at the event where Charlie Kirk was shot. However, the prosecution argues it's irrelevant because the attorney's child didn't actually see Kirk get shot and won't be a witness in the case. A judge is soon expected to rule on that motion and on the defense's request to bar graphic videos of Kirk's murder from being shown in court.
The hearing is scheduled to begin at 1 o'clock. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A suspect is now in custody in an alleged kidnapping of 2 Florida sisters who police say were groomed for months on the gaming platform Roblox.
According to police, the suspect traveled more than 1,500 miles, driving 23 hours straight from Omaha, Nebraska to Indiantown, Florida, telling the girls to meet him. They disappeared around 5 p.m. Saturday, investigators finding their conversations with the suspect on one of the girls' phones, along with a detailed plan to take them to Nebraska.
ABC's Victor Oquendo reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 111 points to 49,296. Coming up, we got a crash blocking a chunk of an intersection in Spanish Fork, plus warm temperatures for February. We'll check traffic and weather together next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Are your investments in the right accounts? What's best, traditional or Roth? Are you receiving all available tax deductions? Are you paying as little in tax as you can? These are all questions you can't afford to get wrong. Hi, I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth, and in many cases, it's not what you make, but it's what you keep that makes the real difference. Trajan Wealth and Trajan Tax work closely together exclusively. No more guessing about whether you should do a Roth conversion, or if maxing out your 401k is really the best option. Our nationally recognized fiduciary advisors and CPA team work in tandem to make sure your tax strategy works with your investment strategy. We'll even do your tax preparation. One team, one strategy. Isn't it time for a second opinion? Call Trajan today, 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Trajan Wealth, an SEC registered investment advisor. Additional services through Trajan Estate and Trajan Tax. Additional disclosures and accreditation at TrajanWealth.com.
Valentine's Day is a moment to pause and celebrate the love that fills your life. Duke's Jewelers in Springville believes every love story deserves something timeless, something chosen with intention and given from the heart. This Valentine's season, explore pieces that speak without a single word. Dazzling diamonds that catch the light, rich gold that feels classic and enduring, and colorful gemstones that tell a story all their own. Whether you're marking a first Valentine's together, honoring decades of devotion, or simply wanting to make someone feel cherished, Duke's Jewelers is here to help you find the perfect piece. Duke's Jewelers will guide you with care, offer thoughtful suggestions, and even wrap your gift beautifully so you can enjoy the moment, not stress over it. Visit Duke's Jewelers on Springville Main Street and discover a gift that will be treasured long after February 14th is passed. Because love is worth celebrating in the most meaningful way. Duke's Jewelers. Love elevated.
Traffic and weather together on KSL News Radio, brought to you by UCCU. Transfer savings, earn more. UCCU, love where you bank. Cormac Bone?
Heaviest delays eastbound Pioneer Crossing, starting around 500 west and reaching to I-15. Otherwise, speed-wise, looking really good on all your major freeways and main secondaries. But we got a couple crashes. First in Spanish Fork. This is on Main Street at 800 North. This crash is blocking multiple lanes for both roads. Main Street seeing the worst delays, both north and southbound there. And then our next crash, this is on I-15 southbound at Pioneer Crossing in American Fork. We don't see any delays in their wake, but they are still in that right shoulder, so just be careful as you get around them. And then northbound Bangerter Highway in West Valley, we've got a crash. This is as you pass 4700 South. They're blocking a couple right, it looks like one right lane and the right shoulder, but volume's pretty light there, so we're not seeing too many delays there either. Arrive in style for all of life's events, from the first suit to the first dance, preparing to serve or starting a life together. Every age, every milestone. For nearly 60 years, Mr. Mac, helping you look your best for all of life's events. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we get a high haze and a high of 52 degrees today. Temperatures keep rising through the rest of the week. Then there's a chance we could see a storm on Monday. Right now it's 39 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, recently during an interview, President Trump said we should nationalize voting in the United States instead of, I guess, having the states do it. You'll have to explain this to me a little bit, but he's talking about at least in 15 states. I'm assuming those would be blue states. We should nationalize it and have election overseen by federal rather than state authorities.
Yeah, it's a constitutional question, and you actually read from the U.S. Constitution earlier in the show, saying that states get to run their own elections, right? That they get to decide, but on an interview on Monday, so just yesterday, with Dan Bongino, his former deputy FBI director, he called for Republican officials to, quote, take over the voting procedure in 15 states and said the Republicans should say we want to take over, we should take over the voting in at least as many 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. So it should give a lot of people heartburn. And here's one of the reasons why I think we have gotten to a point in this nation where we forget that the pendulum swings. And so even if you are a Republican who says, yeah, we should nationalize the elections and have the federal government control elections in blue states, what happens when the next Democratic president comes along and says, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And then it swings back against you. That's a really, I don't know, question that I think not enough people are asking.
And it would also require, I think, a constitutional amendment, because we read from the Constitution earlier,
Yes, we
just
did.
by coincidence as it relates to Prop 4 and redistricting, time, place, and manner of holding elections shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof.
Well, that's what I'm saying is we have a president right now who does do a lot of things by executive order. And this was just a comment. This is not an executive order, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be, because he has posted on Truth Social that he wants to completely eliminate vote by mail, which again goes to the question I had earlier. This seems like a state's rights issue with the state being able to choose.
Well, here's exactly what he said.
The president certainly isn't shying away from the federal government being involved in state election procedures, right? He even said something about nationalizing elections yesterday. What does that mean?
Yeah, and this is really raising a lot of eyebrows, especially because we are now in a midterm election year. The president, speaking in a radio interview with Dan Bongino, his former deputy FBI director, said that Republican officials should be taking over elections in about 15 states.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes.
So I think that's one of the issues, right? Is it really comes on the heels of the Fulton County, Georgia, the FBI raiding the election offices and taking 700 boxes of ballots from the 2020 election. It's a little mind-boggling, I have to be honest. But we have with us on the line Jay Evenson, the opinion editor of the Deseret News. And Jay, just as you see these comments from the president about nationalizing elections, what's your first response to that?
No, my first response is I'm really confused, because I always thought the Republicans were the party of small government that wanted states to be 50 laboratories of democracy where we each figures out the best way to do things, not to have big government from Washington come in and take over things. There's one number that I think is very important to all this, 3,143. That's how many counties and equivalent jurisdictions we have in the United States. And each one handles its own kind of mini version of the larger election count in a presidential race. And they have their own rules. They're all similar, but with some slight variation. This, I think, is a really beautiful thing, because it makes elections so fragmented and very difficult to rig. If you were going to rig a race, you would need to compromise several of these election precincts in key states. That would mean a conspiracy involving precinct judges, vote counters, and others, including post-election auditors in each county. And don't forget, we've also got Russia and China and other people out there that want to try to access our elections and do mischief with them. it becomes impossible if you fragment it among 3,143 different jurisdictions. That's the beauty of the race that we have, and I get kind of defensive when people want to mess with that, because I think that's what's kept our elections so clean throughout the years.
And I think a lot of Utahns have every right to be a defensive, Jay, because we do things here in a way. We have mail-in voting, which is a concern with some members of the executive branch. But it seems to be working here, and Republicans have been getting elected here for 30 years. So we do things very well in Utah. Our rate of unregistered voters or voters that shouldn't be voting is basically nothing. So to me, I guess I agree with you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it seems like Utah at least is a model of why states should be running their own elections.
Well, and it's confusing to me as to why every legislative session we have new bills that would change the way we vote in Utah because of some alleged fraud. Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson just finished an audit where they looked at over 2 million registered voters on the records in Utah and found only one that was a non-citizen, and that person had never voted, and it was subsequently taken off the rolls. So I'm confused. Oh, I'm not confused because people who lose elections tend to be kind of sore about it. But why are we trying to mess with a system that works so well and should be the envy of the world?
I have to agree with you, Jay. The Republican Party that I knew or grew up in was the party of small government. And I feel like we have moved a lot away from that quite a bit in a variety of issues. But I am a little gobsmacked at this whole, we want to nationalize elections and we want to do it in places where we don't like how they voted. For a couple of reasons. One is I don't think it's the role of the federal government to control elections. One is your point of it's easier to hack if we just have one centralized database, which is part of the problem that we have when we have the federal bill that's being proposed to basically say we want one federal database of all voter records. That's problematic on its face. But then to just say, look, we don't like how the election played out, and so we want to somehow ensure that it plays out the way that we like. I promise Republicans are not going to like it when the Democrats are back in power.
Well, that's a very good point. And also, how many times are we going to rehash the 2020 election? We've had 64 separate court cases that have arisen from that election. Not one has found any widespread fraud. And if you remember, there was a group led by Thomas Griffith, the former judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals, who's a fellow at the Wheatley Institution at Brigham Young University. And they thoroughly examined each claim of fraud in those 64 court cases, as well as all the audits in battleground states, and determined there was no fraud. The race was lost. It was not stolen. And to add to that, there was a Republican-led audit of Arizona's Maricopa County. If you remember this, people were very concerned because they thought, well, the Republicans are going to come in and make up stuff and find things where there aren't any. Their audit actually found that Biden should have had 99 more votes in the county than what he actually did, and that there was no widespread fraud. So it's time to leave 2020 behind and let's go forward in the future.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was Jay Evenson, the opinion editor of the Deseret News. And, we're going to shift gears a little bit, but this is a really heartbreaking story. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, she's the mom of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. She's missing. The local sheriff says it's a crime scene. We're going to talk about what we know when we come back. But as a person whose mom is in that age range, this is really terrifying.
Yeah, and there's something going on here.
This really
disturbing,
right?
Really happening here.
Stay with us over the break.
When Team USA is on, you can almost see the moment a kid starts believing they could be next. Now, Xfinity can't guarantee that. They can guarantee something just as important, that your internet price won't change for 5 years. No contracts or commitments, so while your kid is ordering gear online, streaming highlight reels, or video chatting, your Xfinity internet price won't budge. And who knows, by the time the next Olympic Winter Games roll around, your kid could be getting fitted for their very own Team USA USA uniform. And guess what? You'll still be paying the same price for reliable Wi-Fi. And there's even more to enjoy with the Xfinity Gold Medal Celebration. Now through February 22nd, get their best price on gig Wi-Fi for 5 years guaranteed. Just $50 a month, plus get Peacock Premium included for 2 years. That's a $10.99 monthly value. Xfinity. Imagine that. Proud partner of Team USA. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Taxes and fees extra. Actual speeds vary.
You know, it's frustrating. It really is. You work your tail off for 40 plus years. The government takes 30 or 40% in taxes. Then they turn around and they waste your money. Americans are getting fed up, rightfully so. And that's why they're taking advantage of tax planning. Tax planning could significantly reduce your taxes, not just for 1 year, but for the rest of your life. Learn how much you could save in taxes when you retire with a free retirement tax savings analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $300,000, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. Don't pay the government one more dime than you need to. Call today, 801-896-9622. That number again, 801-896-9622.
For informational purposes only, actual results may vary. No statement contained herein shall constitute tax, legal, or investment advice.
Are you living with dry AMD? If so, you could be on the road to geographic atrophy, or GA, a condition that leads to retinal cell death and permanent vision loss. But with Izervay, you can
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay slows GA progression by targeting a key source of retinal cell death, which may help preserve your vision longer. Izervay, or Avastin Captid Pagel, is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
My name is Dale Pazinski. I volunteer with United Way to help the homeless in my community learn computer skills and build a basic resume. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Inside Sources.
This has got to be just horrible for Savannah Guthrie, but her 84-year-old mother was abducted from her home in Arizona early Sunday, kidnapped while she was sleeping. We've been watching the as this has been progressing during the week, Holly, but an 84-year-old mother missing, I can't even imagine what that poor woman, Savannah, is undergoing right now.
I think one of the pieces of information that has come out, maybe a little slowly, but that it was a crime scene, and this is news that I saw yesterday saying it wasn't just random, like she didn't wander away from her home. They do believe it's a crime scene, and I saw this morning on one of the TV stations that police said that they found blood at the scene. It's really, it is disturbing. I have parents in that age range. They live in Florida, but same thing, right? If they just disappeared in the middle of the night, it would be really concerning.
Yeah, and there's got to be something more to this. I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what actually happened here. We do have with us from News Nation live. We're going to have with us from News Nation in just a minute, one of their reporters. But didn't you indicate that there might be a press conference about this coming up shortly?
I'm just looking online, and it's the New York Post says at the 11:30 local time, which I think is an hour different from us. I don't know. I don't know how time changes in Arizona. I know they don't change and we do. So maybe it's 11:30 our time. But they are going to have a press conference, and it's they weren't scheduled to, so they're surprised that they're going to hold a press conference today. So I'm sure we'll be able to track that. But Savannah posted earlier today, Savannah Guthrie, and she hosts the Today Show, but she posted a message saying, "We believe in prayer." That was yesterday evening. And just like my questions are, was this random? Was it targeted because her mom is, because she's the mom of Savannah Guthrie? Is it a kidnapping and they're asking for a ransom? I mean, the same New York Post article that I'm looking at said that her pacemaker stopped syncing with her Apple Watch, which is concerning, and yet the Apple Watch was also left behind, so it doesn't necessarily indicate that she's no longer living. But certainly it's something where it's like, oh my gosh, you know that she has some heart problems.
Yeah, and let's hope there's not too much to read into the blood at the scene, because, I mean, people can injure themselves or cut themselves or do other kinds of things that would leave blood trails. But you would almost expect, given her daughter's notoriety and probably wealth, I thought early on this was some sort of a hostage thing, or I don't know. It's just too unusual to make sense.
So this is from I'm looking at USA Today. They say the county sheriff's department there in southern Arizona said she did not just walk out of her home. She can't actually walk 50 yards by herself. They said she was taken. They said there was a 911 call that reported her missing around noon on Sunday, February 1st, but they think that the abduction happened around 2 a.m. So it was somewhere around 10 hours later before they made a 911 call.
Yeah, and pacemaker not syncing. I mean, that's another reason why people's hearts are sinking right now when you think about that.
Yeah, that is a play on words, right? Yeah. Sinking and sinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that we know is that the mother, her name is Nancy. We've said that. She was last seen at her home on Saturday night around 9:30, and the county sheriff said in an interview on Monday again that they think it's a kidnapping. And we do have with us Brian Inton from News Nation. He's live in Arizona. And Brian, I wonder if you could just let our listeners know, what is the latest information right now?
Yeah, I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's home right now, actually, and we're expecting to get an update from the sheriff in about an hour. He's going to have his next news conference. But the latest is that he has been calling it likely a kidnapping or an abduction, that they believe that Nancy Guthrie, Savannah Guthrie's mom, was taken from the home against her will sometime in the middle of the night. They've been calling the house over and over again a crime scene. There have been some reports that there was a small amount of blood found in the house, although in one of the sheriff's most recent interviews, he did not confirm that. So we're expecting maybe to learn a little bit more about that at the next news conference. But the neighborhood is interesting. I'm just driving around right now, and it's remote. I mean, it's outside Tucson. It's in the foothills. The houses are far apart. Each house, I would say, is on an acre or a couple of acres of land. There's no street lights. I was out here last night. It's very, very dark. So it's not like a typical neighborhood where, neighbors are close by and may have seen something or may have had cameras that would have seen something. It definitely has like more of a rural feel.
Brian, has law enforcement indicated whether anything else was taken or disturbed in the house? Was this maybe part of a burglary or something like that? Or do they feel like this was really just a sort of directed effort to seize the mother herself?
Yeah, they haven't said anything about it being a burglary or anything else, or robbery or anything else being taken out of the house. Nancy's purse and phone and wallet were all found inside the house. So you would think if this was some kind of, robbery, that they would have taken those things, or they would have had her wallet. Some people were like, someone may have taken her to the bank and made her go to the ATM, that kind of thing. It doesn't appear that's the case because her belongings are still inside the house.
So, Brian, I hope this isn't too insensitive of a question, but if she was kidnapped, are there ransom requests being made? Do we know that much yet?
So last night we asked the sheriff that, and he said no, that there were no ransom requests. That was his answer. I've covered other stories in the past where, they're not always 100% forthcoming about everything. So is it possible that there's something behind the scenes we don't know about? It's possible, but he flat out said no. And they've got a reward up today, a $2,500 reward for information. So as far as we know, there have been no ransom requests.
What are we hearing from her daughter, Savannah, lately? And maybe she has sort of tried to stay under the radar, but has she made any statements other than what she said Monday?
Yeah, so she's been trying to stay under the radar. She had an Instagram post late last night essentially asking people to pray. I mean, they're obviously a family of faith. And Savannah just wrote a book about God, and, her mom was supposed to be at church that Sunday morning. So she was asking for prayers. That was really the last statement from her, thanking everyone for their support. We know that she's in Tucson. She was supposed to be flying to the opening ceremonies for the Olympics right now, and NBC has confirmed, she normally co-hosts the opening ceremony. She will not be doing that. So we know she's here. The sheriff also said he's been in constant communication with her and other members of the family.
I have one last question for you, Brian. What type of things do you think could have happened? If we have a kidnapping, we don't have ransom.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, initially a lot of people were thinking, like, is it like a home invasion gone wrong? Were they meant to steal things and then for whatever reason took her? It's very, very strange. I mean, it's hard to put your finger on it because, again, there's not, from what we know, items missing in the house. Is it random, or is this somehow connected to Savannah Guthrie? Again, we really just don't know. And police likely know more than they're telling us, but just based on what the sheriff has been saying, they don't have a ton of information. He did say, and this is also new, he said last night that they had DNA, that they did get DNA, and they were going through an expedited process of trying to test the DNA. So perhaps, that will lead them down some kind of road to some answers today. But it's also interesting, it's very quiet outside the house. It's not like there's no police out there anymore. There's not crime scene tape up. I mean, other major, investigations, homicides that I've covered, and of course this isn't a homicide, but that we know of yet. But they'll have the house taped off for days or even weeks. This is everything's just open. There's no police there anymore. So it's kind of a peculiar situation. It makes you wonder what they may know behind the scenes.
Exactly, and I guess we'll know that perhaps
a little more
in an hour. Well, thanks for joining us, Brian. That was Brian Entin, News Nation, calling us live from Arizona. I can't even imagine anything worse than losing a parent or a child and not knowing where they are.
Right.
When we come back after the break, today on Utah's Capitol Hill, lawmakers will be discussing a bill about aligning higher education and workforce needs. It's an issue many have put in question, and we've discussed the value of that before and the value of college. We'll talk with one of the bill sponsors what they plan to do when we come back.
10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints outlined their support for the Utah 2034 Winter Games this morning, saying they're going to help provide volunteers, donate money, and donate the use of a downtown city block. The second counselor in the church's presiding bishopric, Bishop Sean Douglas, made the announcement this morning in a meeting with Utah leaders in Milan, Italy. The city block, owned by the church near the Delta Center, was used as the Metals Plaza in the 2002 games, and this time it'll be the Big Air venue for skiers and snowboarders in the 2034 games. Our top national story this hour from ABC News, Elon Musk's SpaceX is buying xAI.
Both companies are owned by Elon Musk, who says global electricity demand for AI simply cannot be met with terrestrial solutions, adding space-based AI is obviously the only way to scale. Less than a year ago, xAI bought X, the social network formerly known as Twitter, which is also owned by Elon Musk. It comes as many AI companies draw scrutiny for circular deals, which create more risk as it ties all the companies' fates together. SpaceX is expected to go public later this year. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow down 161 points, 1/3% to 49,246. Coming up, we got hazy skies and sunshine, but it doesn't look like a chance for a storm anytime soon. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin. And that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Jeff Kaplan here. You need your house painted and you want it done at the right price. So I want to suggest you get a quote from the professionals at CertaPro Painters. It's not just a coat of paint, it's your home. That's why from the estimate to the cleanup, they're going to work to exceed your expectations. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated right here in our community. They're committed to quality at the right price. Schedule your free estimate online at CertaPro.com. That's Certa with a C. CertaPro.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at UCCU.com. Here's Cormac Bowe.
Roadways really calming down after what we had this morning. Even eastbound Pioneer Crossing is all clear. And our crash southbound I-15 in American Fork, that's also off the road. Where we do have a crash, this is in Davis County, northbound 2000 west just after SR 193. They were blocking multiple middle lanes. Looks like maybe just a couple now, but we're seeing light delays between SR 193 and 300 north both directions on 2000 west. Otherwise, your main freeways and secondaries looking really good speed-wise all across the Wasatch Front. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today, highs should reach 52, and we should stay in the mid-50s the rest of the week. In the long-range forecast, there's a chance for a storm on Monday, but the KSL Weather Center says that could change. Right now, it is 39 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Eye on the Hill 2026. Special coverage on Inside Sources.
It's one of the big bills on the Hill this year, I think, and it has to do with higher ed and aligning higher education with workforce needs. Look, right now we live in a time where people are questioning the value of college, whether it's worth the investment. We know that there are college grads who sometimes struggle to find work right out of college. And I'm seeing a lot of higher education institutions being creative. For example, UVU just announced recently that they're going to do a 3-year program for some of their bachelor's degree, and they're not the only one.
Yeah, and it's been a problem that we've talked about on the show numerous times, and that is people graduating from college or university with 6 figures in debt. And at what point does it become not cost effective to get a degree when you could have been earning something else? So we do have one of the bill sponsors. We're looking at Senate Bill 216, Higher Education Performance and Enrollment Funding, and we're lucky to have one of the sponsors, Representative Karen Peterson, joining us this morning. Representative Peterson, thank you for joining us.
Yes, always happy to be with you guys. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. I wonder if you can explain to our listeners too, actually. Can you explain to our listeners what this bill does and how it's a continuation of some previous bills?
Yeah, well, wonderful question. So we actually have a couple of bills related to higher education this session. The one you're looking at right now around performance funding, that's the one where we want to make sure our performance funding metrics, which we've had before, are really recognizing that each of our institutions are different and we want to reward them differently for the work that we expect from them. So we don't want the same metrics of performance for University of Utah as we had for Uinta Basin Technical College. They have different roles, they have different programs, they have different students. So that's that bill. And it also gives us the opportunity to recognize the work that our institutions are doing around adult learners and people coming back to school. So I'm excited about that, thinking about how we can reward our institutions for thinking about helping part-time students be successful, not just full-time students. We have a lot of students in Utah who, start a program and life happens to them and they end up going part-time or having to start and stop. We want to make sure higher education is still available to them.
That's
the first bill.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then maybe the second one I'll talk about is I have one specifically around alignment. So we probably all know students who have started at maybe one of our technical colleges or even one of our universities and then needed to switch schools. Either maybe they have finished their program and they want to move on, or, they get married and they move across the state and their credits have not transferred. And there is nothing that I hate more than hearing stories about students having to retake classes they have already taken, or thinking that they're going to get credit for something and then they find out all that credit counts for is electives and it didn't actually help them finish faster. It's just not a good situation for our students to be in. So this other bill I'm running starts to set up some alignment between our institutions to say, if I start at a technical college, I know exactly what I'm getting at the university and what programs this will lead into at the university. So our students can kind of be on these pathways and know exactly what that pathway looks like and what they're going to get and what it's going to cost them to get it.
So, Representative, I'm looking, I'm still on the Senate Bill 1, and I'm looking at some of the new language of the bill, and it's really talking about doing a 5-year performance evaluation, really, that will start July of 2027 and go for 5 years. And as I'm reading it, it's saying that we want our institutions to be looking at not only the amount of completion, but high target areas. Am I reading that right?
Yes. Yeah. So we want not only students to be able to finish in a timely manner. We don't want them to have to be in college forever. But second, we really want to focus on those programs in high target areas. And that's not just necessarily high wage jobs, but also just high need jobs in our state. For example, teachers or behavioral health. Places like that maybe aren't the highest wage earnings, but our state has a need for these professions, and we want to ensure our students have opportunities to graduate in those programs and really benefit our whole state with their work.
What's been the level of support or input from the colleges and universities that you've had so far?
Yes. So I always try to work very collaboratively when I run legislation. And so our institutions of higher education, as well as our commissioner's office and Office of Higher Education and Board of Higher Education, have been very instrumental in getting these bills crafted to the places where they are now. I think that there has been, like I said, some frustration with the current performance funding metrics in the things they have rewarded that haven't necessarily made sense at every institution. And so really keying in on maybe we have different metrics at different institutions. For example, we're adding a metric for the first time for University of Utah and Utah State University around research, because there are R1 institutions in our state, and we want them to be focused on research.
So just for our listeners, an R1, and I had to learn this as an adult learner, is the highest level of research institutions. So yes. You mentioned going back to school as an adult, and I am a late bloomer, maybe, as far as getting degrees. How are you addressing that in this bill? Is there a financial incentive? Like, what is there for people who are maybe non-traditional students going back as an adult?
Yes. And Holly, I also was a non-traditional student. I went back to grad school after I had 3 kids, and that's so common in our state to have people return to education a little bit later in life. Maybe they're even deciding to take a different career path, and they want to come and change, learn some different skills. So what the bill does is right now with performance funding, it only rewards our colleges and universities when they have full-time students that enroll directly from high school. So it's kind of your traditional college student. So what this bill does, it says any student that enrolls on your campus, you can start getting credit for them, getting additional funding for them as you have them earn 30 credits. So basically that's kind of the first indicator that a student is going to be successful, getting them through their first 30 credits, giving them the confidence to know that they can complete. And then also thinking about timely completion for part-time students. Before, we were only rewarding timely completion for full-time students, but we want to make sure those part-time students also have those services that help them be successful. And we want to also encourage our universities to help those students complete in a timely manner, knowing that it's going to take a little bit longer when you're a part-time student as opposed to a full-time student.
I'm just going to jump in front of Greg's question and say, clap, clap, clap. Thank you so much. I love that. Way to go.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about another. We're speaking with Representative Karen Peterson, by the way, about some higher education bills. You called it alignment, which was an interesting word for credit for other universities. But I guess I assumed that our universities were communicating better and that attending one university would transfer to another. Is that not the case so far?
We have done a bit of work in this area, but there is more work to be done. Specifically, when you think about, maybe you started a technical college in a composite or a welding program, knowing exactly how that will translate when you move to a university. We do have some more work to be done to ensure that those programs are a little more seamless for students. When I talk about alignment too, the other thing that's so important to talk about with colleges is the cost, right? The cost of our universities and what it costs students. And the more we can be efficient in our costs, the lower we can keep tuition. So one of the things the alignment bill does is it asks our institutions in their region. So let me share an example of a region. I live in Davis County, so my region would be Weber State, Davis Technical College, and Weber Technical College. So those 3 schools would make up my region. Right now, they're sharing Title IX services. So Weber State is providing Title IX services for all 3 institutions. Not only does that give us better expertise and better service, it also reduces the cost for students when we can share services across the region. So that's another place where we want our universities to kind of be aligning some of their administrative. They're each still going to be institutions of themselves and have different, goals and missions. But places where we can do that overlap just makes it cheaper for our students and makes us more efficient.
Thank you so much for joining us again. That's Representative Karen Peterson. And this bill, at least one of the bills, is going to be heard today, and we're going to follow that because it's such an interesting conversation. Speaking of interesting conversations, there is a wild story in the Wall Street Journal about a complaint. It's a whistleblower complaint against Tulsi Gabbard. It is so highly classified, it's been locked in a safe for 8 months because they don't know how to deal with it. I mean, that is very classified. We're going to talk about what we know when we come back.
AMC Building Materials, transforming your house into a home. How do they do that? By working with homeowners, builders, or directly with contractors, combining years of exceptional kitchen and bath creations with your ideas. In fact, customer satisfaction is their #1 priority. You know what you want, or what your client wants, and you know it's not going to be cookie cutter. This is exactly where AMC shines. AMC delivers exceptional quality, bold-style kitchen and bath designs with their exceptional value and a timeline you'll love. Most projects are complete by the elite AMC professional installers in under 10 days, with supplies in stock. Visit the brand new location at 3678 South 7th West Suite 100 to shop and pick up at your convenience with ready stock. Get one step closer to completing your dream renovation. Get directions and schedule your free estimate at amckitchenslc.org. AMC Building Materials, transforming your house into a home. amckitchenslc.org.
More than 50 million Americans suffer from a form of mental illness.
And Utah isn't immune, with nearly 1 in 3 people dealing with anxiety, depression, or another form of mental illness.
But there's hope. We can all take action to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe.
That's why KSL has teamed with the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation to bring you hope and help you thrive.
It's Healthy Mind Matters.
Find out more at healthymindmatters.com.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Do you want to walk, play pickleball, and enjoy other fun activities to stay healthy, but you can't because of bad feet? Hi, this is Mike, and the Good Feet store wants to help.
I just had difficulty walking. I tried them on in the store, and my foot felt so much better.
Do you keep buying new shoes and inserts with little or no relief?
I tried all kinds of shoes. It was the arch supports that made the difference from the Good Feet store.
Don't let bad feet, knees, or back problems get in the way of staying healthy and having fun.
Thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm bowling 3 nights a week.
Get back to doing what you love. At the Good Feet store, we'll personally fit you at high-quality arch supports to maximize your comfort. Stop in the Good Feet store or book your free fitting at goodfeet.com. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can choose the best coverage option for you. Because you know you. Like, you know that hiking isn't for you. Sure, it sounds nice to be in nature while exercising, but that's what a gym and houseplants are for. I mean, you don't even like walking upstairs. So why would you walk up a hill for miles? To what, end up high in the air? Come on, you know you're scared of heights. Only you know you. So get coverage options within your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. You know, the big wireless companies say they have discounts for people over 55. But unless you're willing to sit on hold and ask, you're probably paying more than you should. At Consumer Cellular, there's nothing to hunt down. We're built for people 50 plus with plans starting at just $20. And our 100% US-based customer service actually answers the phone. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today and get your second month free for a limited time.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
The new Inside Sources.
This is the cloak and dagger segment of our show this morning, Holly, but this is wild. A U.S. intelligence official has alleged wrongdoing by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard in a whistleblower complaint that you indicated is so highly classified that it's locked up in a safe right now. And I think officials are wondering what to do with it.
So it is interesting, and of course there are two sides to the story. So the original story about this came out in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and they say it's a classified whistleblower complaint alleging wrongdoing by the Director of National Intelligence, which is Tulsi Gabbard, as we mentioned, and that it has been locked in a safe because they can't even agree on how to show it to members of Congress. And one of the things that the Tulsi Gabbard team said is, well, we looked at it and it was baseless, so there's nothing to do with it.
So you would think if that's the case, they would go ahead and let Congress take a look at it. But somebody has said that it's actually critical to national security, and they don't want representatives to see it because of that.
Isn't that an interesting conversation, right? So you have an intelligence committee, and I think they have the highest level of clearance within the U.S. government, but it is interesting. So it's been held back from members of Congress for 8 months. So Tulsi Gabbard has also said the delay is not their fault. It's not credible, and then it's okay if we show it to members of Congress, but that hasn't happened. And so the attorney for the person who's making the allegations said, look, I don't know what they're trying to hide here, but there's no justification for Congress not having access to this complaint.
Yeah, and one official described it as if disclosing this would cause grave damage to national security and implicates another federal agency beyond Gabbard and raises potential claims of executive privilege that may involve the White House. So who knows where this is going to go and what we're going to learn from this. And I mean, sort of reading between the lines, I don't know that I can read between the lines. It's hard to imagine what this is really all about.
So we know that Tulsi Gabbard has been somewhat of a controversial figure. I think that's fair to say. She used to be a Democrat, and then she became a Trump supporter, and now she's head of national intelligence. But some of the things that happened recently, I think it might have been the Maduro extraction operation. She was sidelined on that, and she didn't even know what was going on. They didn't tell her.
But didn't she show up at the FBI raid?
Yes,
and
that's Fulton County in Georgia, and that's one of the things that's really
interesting.
And
that was controversial.
People are saying, like, why are you here? Because you're supposed to be dealing with foreign national intelligence, right? You're supposed to be helping us with foreign actors. Like, why are you here? And in fact, she had a conversation with President Trump, where she put him on speakerphone talking to FBI agents who were taking out these boxes of election records. And some people are like, that is absolutely inappropriate. We don't understand what she's doing here.
Sometimes it seems with situations like this, Holly, that the hiding it makes it more into the public interest. And Wall Street Journal is now talking about this. And like at some point, release it if it is in fact what Gabbard's people are saying, which is no
there's
evidence of wrongdoing.
Yeah,
right. Then let it out. You can redact the parts that deal with national security and talk about what the real whistleblowing complaint was about.
Well, again, I think you're right? Release the files. We certainly have had that with the Epstein files, which we actually are going to talk about. But you've got the whistleblower's lawyer, and I think his name is Andrew Bakaj, maybe. But they disagreed with Gabbard's office on whether the Inspector General had made any determination about the credibility of the complaint at all. And so they can't even agree on whether they've agreed on this complaint, right? So I think the whole idea that you have something that's so classified, you don't know how to deal with it, you have to lock it in a safe, that's what grabbed my attention.
Yeah, and the complaint was filed in May with the Intelligence Committee's Inspector General. But the complainant's lawyer leaked at least the fact that the complaint had been made in November to the House and Senate intelligence panels, making them aware of it for the very first time. Months later, some of them still haven't seen it, and they're wondering, well, but for this leak, we wouldn't even known that it existed.
The Wall Street Journal article does say that this length of the delay is without known precedent. Like this has never happened before. Normally, the Inspector General should assess whether the complaint is credible or not within 2 weeks of receiving it, and then share it with lawmakers within another week.
Yeah, and we're learning from the Wall Street Journal that representatives for the Senate and House Intelligence Committees have declined to comment. They're not even talking about it.
Well, they may not even have enough to talk about.
Because they probably don't know what it alleges.
Yeah. Again, it's interesting, and you've got whistleblowers, and of course, whistleblowers, I think, have a critical role, and I think one of the things that they can do is shed light on things that are being kept out of the public eye that maybe should be in the public eye. But I also know that whistleblowers can be seen as controversial. And in fact, Tulsi Gabbard says that this particular complaint by a whistleblower was politically motivated. She knows who made it, and she disagrees.
And we're learning also that Tulsi Gabbard actually answered written questions about the allegations from the Inspector General's office some time ago, and that allowed acting Inspector General at the time, Tamara Johnson, to say that the allegations against Gabbard weren't credible. But again, that's subjective, and I think a lot of people, let others make that determination.
Yeah, it's this story, right? It's just like where can you think of other high-profile whistleblowers, right? I mean, I can think of there were some spies deeply embedded within the CIA, Russian spies. Actually, it's been a number of years, but that kind of information came out because there were people within the agency saying, "There's something funky going on right here," but they couldn't out themselves, right, and say my colleague is passing secrets to Russia. They had to do it through whistleblowing, if I remember that story correctly.
Yeah, and but for the whistleblower's lawyer coming out fairly recently, we wouldn't even know about this. And I think he is concerned that nothing's being done, and maybe sort of stirring the pot a little bit, hoping that getting Congress involved and letting them know that this is out there, your intelligence committee needs to take a hard look at this, that maybe somebody will say, well, wait a minute, maybe we should.
Mark Warner, he's a senator from Virginia, and he's the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And he reminded PBS NewsHour that Gabbard pledged under oath during her confirmation hearing that she would protect whistleblowers and make sure that Congress was kept informed. And he said, we expect her to honor those commitments and comply with both the letter and the spirit of the law.
And I think that the Intelligence Committee could take a look at it under circumstances where they agree to keep buttoned up about it, at least so that we can have a second set of eyes on it, and see, is there any credibility here? Is there something could be done? Maybe the Intelligence Committee will say, yeah, we agree with the Inspector General that there's nothing here, and we're going to bury it, and nobody needs to know about it. But the public right now, the Wall Street Journal's got everybody looking.
Well, that's exactly right. So the attorney for the whistleblower was a former intelligence officer with the CIA, and he previously represented an intelligence community whistleblower about the phone call between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, if you remember that. And it resulted in his first impeachment. So he was impeached by the House, but then acquitted by the Senate in February 2020 over the phone call. Actually, so this is going to be the second impeachment. Over the 2020 phone call where he asked the Ukrainian president for a favor. Then he wanted him to announce that he was investigating Democrats, including Joe Biden.
Was that the perfect phone call?
I don't know.
Trump described that one, or one of them, as it was
something
it was
like.
the
No, I don't.
Phone.
I don't know. But it was
one.
recorded, right? And it was a whistleblower who let it be known he was looking for Zelensky to basically throw shade on the 2020 rivals in that election.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, you probably need to let this out and at least let people take a look at it and see what's going on.
You know what she did is she attacked the Wall Street Journal. So I think it's interesting to me that when you attack the messenger, the Wall Street Journal, I believe is a credible source of information. They're very carefully, they vet their stories carefully, and they tend to be pretty right-leaning. And so when you attack the messenger, sometimes it feels like,
doesn't go up very well.
What are you doing?
Well, speaking of getting information, cloak and dagger or whatnot, the latest batch of Epstein files has caused a lot of debate over how much information has been made public about the victims. In fact, some personal information about some of the victims has been disclosed in documents that are otherwise being redacted for other people's information. We're going to talk to a law professor, Paul Cassell, who represents some of the victims, about what this has meant to them and what can be done right after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott. KSL's top story. 2 members of Utah's congressional delegation are now suing the Utah's lieutenant governor over Utah's new congressional map. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has details.
The plaintiffs, which include Representatives Burgess Owens and Celeste Malloy, as well as a handful of other locally elected officials, are claiming the new map is unconstitutional, and they want either the last map reinstated or lawmakers to draft a new one. The lawsuit also accused Judge Diana Gibson of violating a clause in the U.S. Constitution when she approved the new congressional map, which lawmakers had no hand in drafting.
The Democratic State Party chair told the Deseret News state lawmakers had their chance to draw a nonpartisan map, but they left Judge Gibson no choice. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. House Speaker Mike Johnson is confident he has the votes to pass the funding package to end the partial government shutdown. He says once it's passed, he will fight for DHS funding.
FEMA operations, as we're cleaning up from the winter storms, they'll be shutting down TSA, which is obviously necessary to keep the country moving through our airports. Coast Guard operations, I mean, so many important functions in the Department of Homeland Security is what will be adversely affected by these partisan games.
The vote is expected to take place later today. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 366 points. The S&P is down 76. And coming up, a little haze and highs in the 50s. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 11:01.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
At Uline, they know going the extra mile takes hard work. For companies pushing to go further, Uline will go the distance with you. 24/7, they answer the phone to get you the shipping and industrial supplies you need. Business can move fast. Unexpected large orders, adverse weather, new safety guidelines, and changing economic trends. Uline works hard keeping 41,000 items ready to ship, minimizing detours on your way to the extra mile. Visit uline.com.
If you're getting new gutters, make absolutely sure that you don't get screwed. I mean literally, don't get screwed. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. And every single gutter company out there uses screws to hold their gutters together at the corners and downspouts. They use screws because they're fast and cheap and easy, but man, they're terrible for your gutters, aside from possibly cutting your hand. They also loosen and corrode over time because they're not made from the same metal as the gutters. At RGS Exteriors, we've been installing gutters for 70 years now, and we don't use screws. We only use permanent, strong, and unobtrusive rivets. They're made from the same material as the gutters, so they won't oxidize and they won't corrode. They'll also never loosen. Your hand is safe too. Did I mention they look amazing? So don't get screwed. Call RGS and get riveted gutters. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsutah.com.
At Trio South Ogden, the best years aren't behind you. They're right here. Discover independent living services that embrace aging as an opportunity to lean in, not step back. To pursue passions, not retire from purpose. Here, life is bright, colorful, and unapologetically fun. Because aging doesn't mean changing who you are. It means having more time to be exactly who you are. Schedule your tour today at triosouthodogden.com.
Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, brought to you by UCCU. Transfer savings, earn more. UCCU, love where you bank. Here's Ricky Meese.
Pretty quiet out there on the Valley freeways and main secondaries. No problems reported on the downtown city streets. Provo Canyon, Highway 189 by Deer Creek, getting ready to close for a few minutes while road crews continue their work in that area. The closure should not last longer than 30 minutes, but be prepared to stop. It's time to try UTA. Less stress, no traffic, and more U-time. Plan your trip at rideuta.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Mostly sunny skies this week with a bit of inversion. We'll see temperatures slowly rise, getting as high as the mid to upper 50s this weekend. Right now it is 45 and partly cloudy. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, we're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, after the release of numerous documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, we're getting some reaction from some of the survivors after the Department of Justice released these files. One victim, Danny Bensky, spoke to ABC News about the failure to redact her name and other personal information.
I found an image of myself that was redacted. Survivors know what they're looking at, right? So when I'm looking at this image, I'm looking at the border of it and I know exactly what it is. And my heart sinks and I have that feeling all over again, like that feeling of traumatization and just that feeling that lives in the body.
I've sort of prided myself in doing a lot of work with victims, but our next guest has done so much more than I think anyone in the state of Utah as it relates to victims and victim advocacy. And his name apparently shows up thousands of times in this latest release of Epstein files, but not as anything other than an advocate for these victims.
Well, this is Paul Cassell, right? Law
Yes.
professor at the University of Utah. And thanks for joining us, Paul. I heard lots of great things about you from Greg as he was praising your experience in the work in victim advocacy. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I know this is an important issue, so it's good to see it getting more attention.
Yeah, can you tell us what spurred this on in terms, I mean, we've had this information released. Was there personal information involving some of these survivors?
Yes, it appears that in releasing these millions of pages of documents, the Justice Department has failed to redact names and identifying information of a number of the victims. And there's so many failures there, it's really hard to think that this is just an accident. It looks like in some cases someone might have almost just deliberately left names in there. But well, right now our focus is on trying to get that information, that personal and private information that was supposed to be redacted in the files and trying to put the victims back with at least that information held confidential.
So yesterday on the show, we talked about how some of the information was their names, addresses where they lived, unredacted photos, and yet it also seems like some of the redactions are alleged offenders. What happened here? Do you think that was accidental?
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, one of the problems here is there are millions of pages of documents, and apparently that's been farmed out to multiple redactors. And so what looks like might have happened is that some redactors did their jobs properly, most redactors, but some of them just failed to take out some of this very sensitive and private information. And so you have victims now trying to figure out, was I unfortunate enough to have redactor number 2 rather than redactor number 1? And if so, why is all my personal information out?
Paul, can you remind our listeners about your involvement in this case and with respect to some of these victims and why your name shows up 1,000 times?
Yeah, I think it's 2,300 times from what I could tell, along with my good friends Brad Edward and Brittany Henderson, very fine attorneys down in Florida. We were the ones who first challenged the secret non-prosecution agreement with Epstein, the sweetheart deal that kind of spun this whole thing off. It let Epstein off with a slap on the wrist and also tried to immunize so many others who were involved with Epstein. And I spent 12 years along with Brad and Brittany trying to get that non-prosecution agreement overturned because it was done secretly. It was done in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act, which requires prosecutors to confer with victims before reaching a deal. And we spent 12 years. I think we created enough interest in the case that eventually the New York authorities picked up on our arguments from down in Florida. And, of course, they apprehended Epstein and charged him. But then our case, once he apparently committed suicide, then our case was declared to be moot, and we were never able to get a final ruling on it.
That's right, Paul. You were involved with victims who were concerned about the plea bargain, if you will.
The sweetheart deal.
The no process, and trying to get that set aside. Can you just tell us the mechanics of how something like that would work?
Yeah, so the government reached this NPA with Epstein's high-powered legal team, and that essentially immunized many of the other people who were involved down there in Florida. But the deal was done secretly. The Crime Victims' Rights Act, federal law, promises victims the right to confer with prosecutors, and that wasn't done. And so we got Judge Mera, who was handling the case after many years of litigation, to rule that a proper remedy was to invalidate those immunity provisions to allow the victims to then confer about what would be the appropriate outcome in the case. But shortly after that, New York authorities arrested Epstein, and then, of course, he apparently committed suicide up there. So that meant that we weren't able to move forward with our case, and it ended up kind of sadly being an effort of 12 years to not get any effective result for the victims.
Can I ask you a question about this most recent release? What, besides having the victims, a number of victims' information not properly redacted, do you feel like there's more information that is still out there that needs to be released?
Well, I think we're getting close to having all the information released, but the concern has been the way it's been done has been so damaging to victims. I mean, you can imagine if you're someone who has had this trauma inflicted on you by a sex trafficker, and we're keeping that private from family members or others, and now all of a sudden there it is, where people literally all over the world are able to access it and review it. I mean, that's tremendous trauma that's being inflicted on the families and on the victims themselves. And so we're hoping that the Justice Department will move quickly to take down that information, but it's really hard to understand how so much information could have gone out there. Judge Berman, who's a federal district court judge in the Southern District of New York, is taking a look at these issues, and we're hoping that he'll order the Justice Department to move very, very quickly on this. But as they say, putting the cat back in the bag is almost impossible in a situation like this.
Paul, can you tell our listeners sort of the state of the law as it relates to victims' rights? We saw a post or a motion recently by the widow of Charlie Kirk asking for a speedy trial, and some people thought, well, what is her stake in that game? What rights does she have? But victims do have a substantial amount of rights, actually, thanks to people like you. But can you tell us the current state of victims' rights?
Yeah, it's an interesting area. As you mentioned, for many years, it was just the prosecutors and the defense attorneys who could be involved in criminal cases. But in Utah and the federal system and most states now, victims do have rights in the process. Those are limited rights at limited points in the process. But, for example, here in Utah, there is the right for a victim to have a speedy trial and for a victim's family to step in a homicide case and assert that right to a speedy trial. Now, how that operates, of course, is against the backdrop that there are rights for criminal defendants as well. So that doesn't mean that victims get to drive the system. They get a voice in the process, not a veto over the outcomes. And I think that's what's going to be happening in the Kirk case, among many other cases out there in the country.
One last question, if you would. I think what I'm seeing online is that there have already been thousands of pages taken down that might have included these improperly redacted pieces of information. But with over 3 million pages, is this something that's going to take a significantly long period of time?
Well, we're hoping that the Justice Department can move very, very rapidly on this. Apparently, part of the problem is that the files are the documents are separated into multiple files, and so it's apparently somewhat tricky to just go in and redact a particular name. You have to go file by file. But you would think the Justice Department has, AI and other tools that would allow that kind of redaction to be done very rapidly, and hopefully they'll be able to take care of it here soon. But it's still, as I say, very hard to put that information back into a bottle because there are so many people looking at the information and so many ways for that information to get out there.
Thank you, Paul. That was Paul Kafsell, a law professor at the University of Utah, who, Holly, I think is probably the nation's leading victim advocate and maybe one of the nation's leading criminal law scholars right now. Teaches that up at the University of Utah.
Really good information. When we come back after our break, I think it's important for our listeners to know that about half of all of the election officials in the West have left their positions since the 2020 elections. We're going to talk about why and get some live analysis from the former Utah County clerk when we come back after this break.
And I've been taught to begin with the end in mind. And when it comes to something like weight loss, that's really, really important because some weight loss plans have no end. It's like another refill or another bill or another year. But SOTA weight loss has a finish line.
You learn it once, you use it forever. And I'm all about health. I mean, I don't want to have my body become addicted to another drug that I have to take forever in order to be healthy. I want the opposite of that. I want fewer medications. I want my body to learn how to do this on its own and be strong.
For so many weight loss drugs, you have to just take them forever in order to maintain that feeling when you cross the finish line. Yeah. When I hit 70 pounds that I let go of in 5 months, what an amazing feeling. And it was amazing to know I could just go forward from this point.
You can talk to a nutritionist and ask all your questions at 866-800-SOTA.
Or you can go to sotaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Because at SOTA, join us for a short time to have results that last a lifetime.
Are you looking to upgrade your home this year? Advanced Window Products is your local window and door manufacturer that sells direct to the public.
That's right, celebrating 40 years serving Utah since 1986. And right now, it's the New Year, New Window Sale. Get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more.
Our windows are made right here in Salt Lake City. Sales and installation are all in-house, meaning no middleman markups. You get the most affordable, high-quality custom windows in the state.
We build it, we install it, and we guarantee it for life.
Every window comes with a lifetime warranty, labor, glass, and parts included, serviced by our local team, and the warranty is transferable to the next homeowner.
Financing is available too. Save now, pay later, with payments as low as $150 a month.
Buy local and support the local economy. Don't wait. Buy 10 windows or more and get $2,500 off. Beat the rush and call today.
Call us at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit us at advancedwindows.com.
You still thinking job change in the new year?
Yeah, I need something that's in high demand and more stable in this economy.
IT?
Yeah, cybersecurity, maybe even AI.
That's what I did.
Really? How?
Went to My Computer Career. You don't need any prior experience, and you could start your new career in a matter of months. A lot of IT pros go to school there, too, to level up.
Sweet. Are classes online or on campus?
Both.
Wow, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Make this your year. Take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu, an Elite CompTIA certification partner.
Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
This message comes from Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort. Journey through the heart of Europe on an elegant Viking longship with thoughtful service, destination-focused dining, and cultural enrichment on board and on shore. With small ships that bring travelers closer to the destination, there's more time to explore. And every Viking voyage is all-inclusive, with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com.
Big tax changes this year could mean a bigger refund, and Jackson Hewitt knows how to get you your biggest. You'll get $100 just to try us. That won't make you filthy rich, but definitely gas plus groceries rich. And since we know all the new tax codes, you could get thousands back, which would make you low-key loaded. Or at least wealthy adjacent? Go with our trusted pros and get $100 to switch. Rest easy. Jackson Hewitt's got your taxes. Guaranteed. Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. You know, the big wireless companies say they have discounts for people over 55, but unless you're willing to sit on hold and ask, you're probably paying more than you should. At Consumer Cellular, there's nothing to hunt down. We're built for people 50 plus with plans starting at just $20. And our 100% US-based customer service actually answers the phone. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today and get your second month free for a limited time.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You served behind the desk.
You served in combat.
You did 4 years and got out.
You were drafted.
You gave 20 years.
You gave exactly what your country needed.
And so did you.
When you raised your hand and swore an oath to your country, when you put your name on a dotted line, you became part of only 1% of Americans who did the same. You are a veteran.
You are a veteran.
You are a veteran. Because no matter when, where, or how you served, you made a sacrifice for your country, and you deserve support.
If you're struggling with life after service, don't wait. Reach out.
Reach out to a loved one, to a fellow veteran, to VA.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Inside Sources.
Well, elections officials in Utah are leaving their jobs at a record pace, according to an article published today by Cami Mondo, Deseret News reporter, who's usually joining us from Washington. Elections officials across the United States, including Utah, are leaving their office at a record pace. Something like 50% of local elections officials have left their jobs between November 2020 and November 2025.
In the western states especially, right? That's where this research focused. And it's actually super interesting, but part of that data, of the people who left, 90% stepped down voluntarily. 10% either lost their re-election bid or they were fired. But it's one of the things that really, in my mind, speaks to how much do we trust our local elections and the people who are actually responsible for counting ballots. Utah was number 4. We were the 4th out of the 11 western states in this study. And one of the election officials who resigned is the former Utah County Deputy Clerk, Josh Daniels. And he's a friend of mine. We go way back, like I do with a lot of people in Utah politics.
I noticed that.
He's young enough to be my son, but it's okay. But he's joining us right now. It's Josh Daniels. Thanks, Josh, for joining us.
Hey, it's great to be with you, and it's wonderful to be counted as a friend. I remember working on some important election work, and your name was at the top of the list because we care about the quality of our voter registration, and when you have personal relationships, it's helpful.
Yeah. In fact, we can share that story if you want because it's kind of funny. But anyway, thank you for joining us. And I wondered if you could just tell our listeners why. So first of all, why this broader issue? But why did you personally choose to step down?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I came into election administration somewhat accidentally as the chief deputy clerk auditor in Utah County in 2019. And the county had been behind in funding. They had been right in the middle of a need to update systems. And there was a lot of work that we did in advance of the 2020 presidential year to make sure we were ready for what became record levels of turnout. And it's a big logistical burden. There's a lot of work that has to be done, staff and equipment. And I thought the 2020 election went quite well, given all of the demands and the increased turnout and the pandemic. But the outcome of the 2020 election led to a lot of conspiracies and criticisms of the way elections were handled. A lot of criticisms that are outside the hands and control of the county clerk. Things like, we should not do vote by mail. It's like, well, great, talk to the state legislature. But in the wake of the 2020 election, election officials themselves, county clerks and election directors, became the focus of criticism. And it sort of distracted from the job. And I think that's what people were experiencing throughout the western United States. I didn't seek re-election in 2022 because, honestly, the politics of the community had shifted where election policy was controversial, and a lot of people were promoting conspiracies and ideas about elections that just weren't accurate to how things are done in Utah. And it became just untenable. It wasn't fun anymore, so to speak. With a hyper-partisan focus on positions in government from the top to the bottom of the ballot, you end up with something like the county clerk being a partisan elected official, even though their job is to really be kind of a neutral referee and not to be loyal to one party or another. But I think that's part of the pressure that's on election officials now.
Josh, it seems like nationally there's been more scrutiny to election integrity than ever in the past. But can you tell our listeners what you feel we do well here in Utah? Because it seems like people shouldn't be concerned about the integrity of the elections here in this state.
Yeah, it's a great question. Election security is important to gaining the trust of the population. And election security starts the moment you register to vote. What we do well in Utah, people are talking about the SAVE Act in Congress, this idea that you have to ensure citizens are the ones registering to vote. We've been doing this well in Utah for years, where I'd say 95% of registered voters in Utah start the process by going to the driver's license division and proving their citizenship with a birth certificate and with identification in advance of getting their real ID certified Utah driver's license. That information is then forwarded to the county clerks, who then vet it before adding them to the registration rolls. And then there's ongoing work to make sure those registration rolls are up to date and accurate before ballots are sent out by mail. Some people said they feel like vote by mail means ballots are sent to people that, don't know that they're coming, or that there's some, question of people's citizenship and identity. That's largely not true in Utah, and that was established by the Lieutenant Governor's office last week with a study where they found I think one person that wasn't a citizen that they could find in the entire state that happened to be on the registration rolls. We did a lot of this work in Utah County, even after having all these registered voters come through driver's license division. We actually studied what we thought might be anomalies in the registration system and tried to find, well, are there any households that have too many registered voters? We found one, and it's your co-host, because she has a lot of adult children living with her. And it brought a smile to my face when I gave my staff the job to go look for these anomalies, and they came back and said, Josh, we found a household in the county with, more than 6 registered voters. And I said, let me look at it. Let me guess who it. In fact, I said, no, let me guess who it is. And I said, is it Holly Richardson's house? I said, how'd you know? I said, well, she has a lot of, young adult and adult children. Quite famously has adopted and fostered a lot of kids. And I was like, that's not anomalous at all. There's a good explanation for it.
And he called me.
Sort of thing. Yep.
He called me to make sure they still lived there, and they actually did.
Yeah. Another fun story is one of our state senators had an adult, a parent, an in-law, who had recently died that was living with them. And they called us, our office, the day of the election and said, hey, I am really surprised how good of a job you do updating voter registration records. My in-law died just, right around the time of the election ballots being sent out, and you didn't send them a ballot. You had already removed them from the list because you gotten the death record, and you were that up to date. That's shocking. This is the kind of work that local election officials are doing to make our elections secure. And when people muse on social media about unfounded conspiracy theories, it undermines people's trust and really confuses people about what really is happening behind the scenes.
Josh, I want to ask you a question, and we're almost out of time, unfortunately, but I wanted to ask you a question about the National Republican election bill that was unveiled from the House side last week. That one of the things that it says in this bill is that anybody can sue any election official basically for any reason. And I wonder, for me, I think that would have an immediate chilling effect on who is going to run for these offices where it's so important. What are your thoughts as a former election official about a bill that would say anybody can sue you?
Yeah, that's awful. Usually government officials enjoy qualified immunity when they act under the color of law as a government agent doing their job following the law. The idea that you could somehow be personally liable, whether or not something actually was amiss, the fact that somebody could actually bring suit would absolutely reduce interest of high-quality, thoughtful people being in those offices. And I think you'd have people who maybe don't know the risk who would sign up to be in those offices. I think we need to go the opposite direction, and really a lot of officials like this around the country are appointed by boards. They're usually nonpartisan, and they're professionals. And I think that's what we need. We need a professionalism in election administration with oversight by the political branch. And so some of the good models around the country, they have election boards that are elected, or maybe it's like a version of what you think of as the county commission, and they appoint a nonpartisan election director. I think that's a good model. I think we should depoliticize these roles because they really are neutral roles that require professionals.
I have a really short, just a few second question. What can we do to increase trust in our election system?
I think the biggest thing is education. Voters need to understand how our system works and have faith in it because they understand it and because there are credible voices speaking to it in detail. Right now, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of misinformation, and it confuses people and makes people really concerned.
Thank you so much. That was Josh Daniels. He's a former Utah deputy clerk for Utah County, and as he mentioned, they had to call my house to see if I actually had that many voters, and I did.
Interesting story. When we come back, the Trump administration has announced that ICE officers in the field in Minnesota will be wearing body cameras. You think? Maybe a little late. We'll talk about that when we come back.
11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott, KSL's top story this hour. Idaho lawmakers say they're looking at options to retaliate if Utah passes a bill that taxes gas from Utah's refineries that gets shipped out of state. Utah House Speaker Mike Schultz says he hasn't met yet with his counterpart in Idaho, but he hopes they can work things out.
I think Idaho and Utah share a lot in common. One, we would like to see more fuel refined in our region. Let's come together and find a pathway forward so that we can figure that out.
Schultz is pointing the finger at the petroleum industry for creating a rift between the states. Idaho gets 85% of its fuel from Utah refineries, and they're worried their gas prices could jump by 25 cents a gallon. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Ukraine's president says Russia fired hundreds of drones and missiles on the country's energy infrastructure. This was the largest reported Russian attack this year.
Russia overnight launched a huge attack on Ukraine's energy system involving well over 500 drones and missiles, and it has knocked out heating for well over 1 million people during the coldest period of the winter that we have seen so far. Temperatures are around minus 20 Celsius, about minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Russia targeting thermal power stations. Those are the ones that are specifically used to provide heating.
ABC News foreign correspondent Patrick Revel. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 461 points. The S&P is down 94. And coming up, hazy sunshine. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM. Andy, I like that shirt. Is that a new shirt?
It is. It's from Ann Collar, and it's really rare to find a shirt that looks good and is super comfortable. And this is a fabric unlike anything I've ever felt.
I got one for my husband and my sons, and watching my 19-year-old put on the Ann Collar shirt and sort of check himself out in the mirror, I thought, wow, he's really digging that. And I can understand why, because it's not just comfortable, it's stain repellent, which I needed.
Oh, my goodness.
Because,
something.
He attracts spaghetti sauce to shirts like you would not believe. And with these Ann Collar shirts, I can get it out.
Amanda, I have to wear a special bib when I eat spaghetti with a white shirt on. But with Ann Collar shirts, it takes those little tiny nicks and stains, and they don't stick to you. Yeah, you don't have to dump a bucket of stuff on you, but it would repel that, too.
You've got to try one. So whether it's the traditional white shirt or any of the patterns they have, it's Ann Collar, and they're made right here in Utah.
If you've never tried Ann Collar before, we have got permission to give you 15% off at andcollar.com and go get your first. Use the code KSL15.
That's andcollar, andcollar.com.
Taxes was waiting on the refund you needed yesterday.
All right, your car repair is going to run about $3,000.
Ugh. Now Taxes is getting back on the road with TurboTax and Credit Karma, where you can get your refund up to 5 days faster and get personalized guidance to take every dollar further. Now this is Taxes. Intuit Credit Karma with TurboTax. Deposit a federal refund into Credit Karma Money account and early submission of refund data by IRS required. Terms apply. Banking services provided by MVB Bank, Inc. Member FDIC. Credit Karma is not a bank.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed. Shop now for a limited time. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
You know, it's frustrating. It really is. You work your tail off for 40 plus years. The government takes 30 or 40% in taxes. Then they turn around and they waste your money. Americans are getting fed up, rightfully so. And that's why they're taking advantage of tax planning. Tax planning could significantly reduce your taxes, not just for 1 year, but for the rest of your life. Learn how much you could save in taxes when you retire with a free retirement tax savings analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $300,000, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. Don't pay the government one more dime than you need to. Call today, 801-896-9622. That number again, 801-896-9622.
For informational purposes only, actual results may vary. No statement contained herein shall constitute tax, legal, or investment advice.
Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, brought to you by UCCU. Supercharge your savings at uccu.com. Here's Ricky Meese.
A nice and quiet drive on your Salt Lake County freeways. We do have traffic moving once again on Highway 189, Provo Canyon near Deer Creek, and a report of a possible accident in Davis County. This is eastbound Park Lane at the I-15 junction in Farmington. Elevate your dining at the Roof, now serving lunch and dinner. Enjoy city views and fan favorites like Funeral Potato Bites and the Bacon Fig Flatbread. Visit theroofslc.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see a high of 52 today with mostly sunny skies. Highs remain in the 50s through the weekend. Right now it is 48 and partly cloudy. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, this is probably good news, but in the wake of the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, the Trump administration has announced that ICE officers in Minnesota will now be wearing body cams. Here's ABC's Matt Rivers, who is in Minneapolis.
President Trump is saying, quote, they generally tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening. This is overnight. The death of 37-year-old protester and nurse Alex Preddy was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner after he was shot and killed by federal agents. The medical examiner had also ruled the shooting of another protester, Renee Good, was a homicide as well. In both cases, local investigators say they are being blocked from accessing key evidence by the federal government, while DHS says that both investigations are being carried out by the book.
Well, I might have some questions.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, one of the things I think that is a question that I have that I suspect a lot of people have is why weren't they already wearing body cams?
That's a good question because in this day and age, in 2026, law enforcement is wearing body cams.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a matter of should they, could they. It's a function of virtually every law enforcement officer, even some smaller agencies that may have limited budgets, are now getting all their officers to wear body cams.
It's one of the things that is an interesting part of this discussion because I've seen repeatedly that ICE is not technically law enforcement like we think of law enforcement, right? That they really are a different branch and they're doing things very differently, including covering their faces, not wearing body cams. But this was yesterday. This is by Secretary Kristi Noem. She posted this on X, and she said she just spoke with Tom Homan, the ICE director, and effective immediately, we're deploying body cameras to every officer in the field in Minneapolis. And then as funding is available, the body camera program will be expanded nationwide. We will rapidly acquire and deploy body cameras to DHS law enforcement across the country, the most transparent administration in American history. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. So, I have a little bit of history with this, and I just want to share it because we didn't have body cams back in the day.
I know, you're old.
Right, yes. But
I'm
I
kidding.
remember working at the district attorney's office when we started having dash cams, which preceded
Sure.
the body cam. And law enforcement officers were being required to put cameras in their vehicles. And there was a pushback from law enforcement saying, well, won't that sort of chill
Bias
what we
or
can
something.
do?
Oh, yeah.
And it had the opposite effect, because what we learned was that generally officers are doing their jobs really well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times what would happen, we'd see people who would say, I didn't consent to the search of my car. And you would think, well, of course they didn't. They had drugs in their car. No smart person would consent to the search. Dash cams, we learned that smart people were consenting to search because they thought they would outsmart the police officer. Hey, if I consent, then he obviously won't search my car. Dash cams made a huge difference. And then later on in my career, we started getting body cams. And again, the same thing we've learned. I think as a police officer, I would want to have a body cam to establish what I'm saying is true, because generally police do act appropriately in situations. Now, a body cam in an officer-involved critical incident, which I've investigated and represented, is critical, because the question, the paramount question that you have to ask yourself when you're looking at an officer involved in a shooting is, what were they perceiving at the moment they pulled the trigger?
Sure.
And there's no better way to know that than the officer's own body cam.
Right.
Really, there's because that's what they saw. That's what they were observing. And if the body cam shows that they were under some threat, it saves the officer. If it doesn't, then it could hurt the officer. But let's get the truth out, because you can't always rely on witnesses and officers and whatnot. Let's get the body cam. Of course, in this day and age, we have everybody out there with their cell phones, so we essentially do have some cameras.
Well,
but
there's
the body
other
cam,
cameras, yeah.
The body cam puts you in the eyes of the police officer, his or herself.
So I'll just say this: when I see stories of what do you call them? Officer-involved critical incidents.
Oh, I
that's
see.
the official.
Yes,
that's the
exactly.
official word,
Right.
When there's a police shooting or something, one of the things that I see as a member of the public that I find really concerning is a notice that they turned off the body cam. Right. As they put somebody in the back of the car, they turned off the body cam. Right. That would make me immediately say there's something that they're trying to hide.
And in this day and age, if you do have that, you could almost presume that the worst. When an officer doesn't have a body cam or is not functioning, that will allow a judge or jury to assume maybe they were hiding something when they probably weren't. So why not just be as transparent as possible?
We have our friend Janetta Williams who's texted in, and she says she doesn't know if you remember, but that she was very instrumental in helping getting body cameras for all police officers in the state of Utah as
Absolutely.
the president of the
Yes.
NAACP.
Yes, because it was
super important. Yeah.
Sure. And obviously there's a pushback for financial reasons, but it's hard to just equip everybody with a body cam. They're not cheap. But in this day and age, I think most law enforcement agencies save money by having body cams because of the potential for lawsuits when you don't.
Well, if you have a $50,000 signing bonus, make it $49,500
Right.
and buy a body cam.
And get them a body cam.
Look, we have another texter that says it's interesting what ICE was willing to do when there are cameras around, and they wonder, and I've seen this mentioned many times, if they were doing things like that, shooting Renee Good and Alex Preddy, what are they doing when there's no cameras around?
Right. And, of course, now in this day and age, there's almost always cameras around.
Some kind, right?
ICE.
Some kind of
People
camera.
are blowing whistles and doing all kinds of things. And, ICE has been its own worst enemy. I'm sure there are 95% great officers that work there. I know they're not law enforcement officers, but they're officers and agents. But it seems like for some reason, ICE is attracting some people that have caused some problems, and I don't know what's going on there. But they're just
that's the attorney in you for some reason.
People just push them, and they get pushed, and they do things that are really problematic. And I'm glad they're doing this. It's a little bit late, but they should be wearing. And I would say they shouldn't just limit it to ICE officers in Minnesota. Make it nationwide.
It has to be nationwide. Look, we just had an incident in Utah where they kicked down a door. So, look, I have this question for you, and we're going to be a little short on time. But these two deaths, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, they've now both been ruled homicide. And do you see, I know the messaging has changed, but do you see any criminal punishment maybe coming down for the ICE officers involved in this?
Okay, so homicide is a term of art. They weren't ruled murder.
Okay.
Homicide means death caused by another.
Okay.
It could be justified. It could be, you know what I mean? They didn't die from natural causes or from a heart attack or from suicide. They died as a result of another person's conduct. Now that gets you halfway there if you're prosecuting a murder case, but you still have to put yourself in the eyes of the shooter and say, okay, was it justified? Because I mean, if you think about it, a homicide occurs in war. A homicide occurs when you're executing a person pursuant to the death penalty. It's technically a homicide, but it's not criminal. So I thought that as well. That's going to give people the impression that the medical examiner has determined both of these to be two murders. The magic word is homicide, which simply means death caused by another.
Well, let me then change the question. Do you think that there could be some sort of a trial where they try to rule was it murder?
That's going to be the whole crux of the case. Okay,
if there's even a case, that's my question.
Right. If they're charged, then the question becomes, and what's going to be investigated, and what's clearly being investigated now is what we've been talking about. What was the officer's perception at the time? Was it justified? Was that causing of death justified under what the officer was perceiving at the moment he or she pulled the trigger? What was going on through that officer's mind?
All right. Well, good. We have a legal expert on our show. So next, instead of doing fun facts, we are actually going to go to Italy. Woo, woo. I wish I were there.
Fact, yeah.
I know. Where the Winter Games are about to get underway. Sarah Weaver, the editor of the Deseret News, is there, and she's going to let us know about a significant financial donation pledged to support the Utah 2034 Olympics, but also just what she's seeing on the ground in Italy and hopefully eating great food. So we'll be with Sarah when we come back.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried, because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 18 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 30, 60, or 90 days from a station contest or event may not be eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com/contests.
Trying to make sense of the markets? Looking to diversify out of all the craziness? Thinking about tangible assets like precious metals? Listen to The Gold Show with Kenny Michaels right here on KSL at 3 p.m. Sunday afternoons. Stay up to date on retirement trends, how the IRA rollover process works, and why investors are turning to physical gold. Kenny is a national talk show host with decades of experience in the markets. Tune in for Kenny's Insights and The Gold Show this Sunday afternoon at 3.
Who is Farm Bureau Financial Services? At our core, we're relationship builders. We're home and auto bundlers, life insurers, farm and ranch protectors, and retirement planners. We're neighbors, community members, and friends. We're the people you can count on now and for years to come. Find a Farm Bureau agent at fbfs.com/protect. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company, Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Do you spend half your day walking or standing while working? If you have foot, knee, or back problems, the Good Feet store wants to help you like we help Tony.
Pain that I experience the most is foot pain from being on my feet all day. You're having to kind of talk to yourself through the whole shift, like, I got this, I can do this. Before, I felt defeated, and now it's like, all right, let's go. I'm ready. A whole new life, like sunshine coming on.
And how about working more comfortably, like Dennis?
Working at an amusement park, it's always on your feet. I just couldn't take it, but I didn't have a choice. I just couldn't believe that putting these arch supports in made that much of a difference that quickly. I could do my job, and I could take care of my family. I know what my tomorrow is going to be. It's going to be positive.
You deserve a better life too. Stop in the Good Feet store today. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. For over 40 years, founders Robert Hicken and Paul Balliff have led Utah-based RJ Masonry. Their work spans stone and masonry projects statewide, from historic restorations to civic and religious buildings. Co-owner and president Robert Hicken joins us with more.
At RJ Masonry, our story began when I fell in love with masonry as a teenager and set out to build a company grounded in craftsmanship, service, and integrity. Today, that commitment guides our team of more than 180 skilled professionals as we partner with architects, contractors, and owners across Utah and beyond. From complex historic restorations to modern stone architecture, our goal is the same on every brick, block, stone, and masonry project we undertake. Deliver exceptional quality through collaboration, innovation, and meticulous attention to detail. We've had the privilege of contributing to projects such as the Salt Lake Temple renovation, the Montage Deer Valley, and the Salt Lake Performing Arts Center, where precision, coordination, and respect for tradition are essential. Whether the job is large or small or highly specialized, we bring a problem-solving mindset and a sincere dedication to exceeding expectation. That's the standard we've built our reputation on for more than 40 years.
RJ Masonry has completed a variety of projects across Utah, including both public and private developments. Their work includes a focus on project timelines, safety practices, and collaboration with clients. Visit rjmasonyinc.com. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
An expanded Inside Sources.
You know, it doesn't look like winter outside, Holly.
Not here.
Although Groundhog Day did indicate we got 6 more weeks. But what's important is what they're doing in Milan, Italy. We are just days away from the opening ceremonies, which are Friday. We've got a full team there from KSL covering everything you need to know, and that will continue to follow up with that as the games get going.
The Deseret News also has a full team there, and Sarah Weaver, the editor of the Deseret News, is one of those people. So, Sarah, thank you for joining us. I'm glad I didn't call you in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah. What time is it there?
You can call me anytime, Holly. I'll always pick up.
So, okay. So, first of all, how's the food?
The food is amazing. It's a little rainy, and we're not seeing the snow here. But I'm in Milan, and so in places like Cortina, there's some snow. This Olympics is unique because the distance between the venues is so spread out, and so you have 4 to 5 hours between several venues. So a lot of different athletes are in different cities, and that is something that is unique to this Olympic Games.
Wow, that's really interesting. What's the energy like there as the Olympics get ready to kick off?
Oh, the Olympics are so unifying, so amazing. There's so much energy, there's so much optimism, and there's so much goodwill. I love being in Olympic cities, and I'm so excited for Salt Lake City to again become an Olympic city.
Yeah, so what are you focusing on there? Why are you there, Sarah?
Well, the Deseret News is going to not only cover the 2034 Utah Olympic and Paralympic Games committee. They did a presentation to the IOC, and things seem to be moving along very in good fashion for us to host a great games in 2034. But we're also there to follow Olympic athletes that have Utah connections. And there's so many, because so many winter sports train in this state. And so that's really fun. And then today there was a significant press conference by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that pledged support to the 2034 Utah Olympic Games.
I wanted to ask you about that because I saw an article, which now I realize you were writing in Italy. And it says there's a significant financial donation that's been pledged. What does that mean? Do you know details yet about what that means?
Well, they didn't release an amount for this, but Fraser Bullock, who's the chair of this of the Utah Organizing Committee for 2034, said that this donation was enormously important because Olympic organizers don't have commercial rights until 2029. Those go to other cities who are putting on games before Salt Lake City, and that limits their ability to raise money. So the Olympic Committee from Utah did two things. They appealed to donors, and we have seen a lot of that in a program called Platform 34, in which major donors from the state gave $20 million or more each. And then the Church of Jesus Christ stepped up and said, we want to make this donation, and it allowed the Olympic Committee to get going right out of the chute and not have to wait to raise money till 2029. They could start making plans now.
Thank you for that information and that explanation. I also see that there's additional support that the church is offering, access to church-owned real estate, for example, the use of land adjacent to proposed Olympic sites. Can you talk about that?
Well, I'll tell you the one that I am most excited about. There is a parking lot located right across the street from our offices between North and South Temple in downtown Salt Lake City and 200 West and 300 West. And this was the site for the 2002 Olympic medal plaza. And the church owns that property and has said, we want to donate that property for use by the Olympics again. So this will, for the second time, be the Medals Plaza right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. And it's also really exciting because this block, it's known as Block 85, is not only going to be the site of the Medals Plaza this year, but it will actually be an Olympic venue for Big Air. So you're going to have skiing taking place right down in the heart of Salt Lake City, and I love that. The other thing the church pledged was to donate some of their other property for parking at random venues across the state. The Church of Jesus Christ owns a lot of property in Utah. Some would be property where they have existing buildings, but some might be lots. And they've said you can use selected pieces of property to help the Olympic Committee park at venues. And then the final thing they committed today was that, again, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would be volunteers for the Olympic Games. And that's really not an insignificant thing. I remember in the 2002 games, there was unprecedented numbers of volunteers from Utah. At the time, BYU suspended classes for 2 weeks so students could work as volunteers. And senior leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ sent a letter to all Utah congregations encouraging members to volunteer. And what happened was that historically, the dropout rate for Olympic volunteers at previous Olympics before 2002 was about 15 to 20%. And the attrition rate for Salt Lake volunteers was less than 1%. And so we do have this great spirit of volunteerism in the state.
Sarah, you are there on the ground in Italy. What do you hope that the Winter Games brings to the world this year?
Well, the Winter Games always bring unity. But there's also a fascinating spirit of just getting up and trying again and doing your best. There's something about competition that brings out the best in athletes and I think human beings. And something else that happened today was Lindsey Vonn, who on Friday in Switzerland had a crash and she tore her ACL. And Lindsey Vonn is a member of the Utah Organizing Committee, but she's also a gold medalist and a 2 times bronze medalist. She retired in 2019 and she hadn't competed for 6 years and had a partial knee replacement and was going to make a grand comeback as a 41-year-old athlete. And then this crash made everyone wonder, can that happen? Is that even possible? And you know what? She said something today that was just so amazing. She says that she's crashed many times, but every time she's gotten back up. And she said, as many times as I failed, I've also won. And so there is this spirit of the Olympic Games about winning and failing and working together and overcoming that I think is really beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to chat again.
I didn't realize Lindsey Vohn's injury was that bad.
So bad.
We were all looking forward to having her compete.
I know.
After so many years out, and she's just such an amazing athlete. But I saw the wreck, and it looked horrific. I didn't know what the extent of the injuries were.
So, yeah, completely ruptured her ACL. But like Sarah said, she just posted on Instagram that her Olympic dream is not over. So it reminds me of some of the other great Olympic stories that we've had, including the skeleton racer, right here in Utah. But that sport is actually terrifying because you're like racing down with your face an inch from the ice on basically a skateboard going 90 miles an hour.
You want to know the fun fact of the day? You know how many times I've blown out my ACL?
More than one?
4.
Oh.
Each knee twice. Well,
do you have new knees now?
Yeah, no, just new ACLs from somebody else. Well, that's it for Inside Sources. Maybe more information than you needed. Midday with Maria Shilaos is up next with continuing coverage of the federal lawsuit involving the state newly apportioned congressional map. We'll talk about that. Maria will after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station. Good afternoon. KSL News Time is 12 o'clock noon, and this is Midday. I'm Maria Shilaos.